On behalf of Captain Scott Goldstein and President Kathleen Resnick, welcome to the Pikesville Volunteer Fire Company training space. For those who I haven't met, my name is Sean Barinholtz. I am an adult anesthesia and ICU physician at Hopkins. I'm an active member here at Pikesville, and I have the honor of serving in the medical director's office as CAR 609. On behalf of the medical director's office, Dr. Pollack, Dr. Sagel, CAR 606, who's with us today, Dr. Wittberg, and a couple of others, welcome and thank you. On behalf of the EMS office, Director Schenning, Captain Willits, Captain Stewart, thanks for coming. Thanks for what you do. And thanks for your dedication to lifelong learning. I also want to give a shout out to our young folks in the back, Ashley, Kaylin, Hunter, Akiva. Thank you for setting up the live stream. So far, we have about 40 people participating around the county via this YouTube platform. So thanks for setting that up, and thanks for maintaining that. There is a request, though, because of the live stream, folks, and to get to make sure that they can hear. If you guys, when we do questions, we have a couple of options. We'll pass around a microphone, right? So we can use the microphone. This microphone in the center will be live, so you're welcome to line up here as well to ask questions. And then if all that doesn't work, pardon the interruptions, but I'll be asking Chief Rund to repeat the question to make sure that the folks on live stream can hear us. Okay, bathrooms are straight out there. Anything else? I think that's it. So thanks again for coming. Chief Rund, thank you so much.
On now. Can you hear me? Hi, everybody. Can I make a special request that all the docs sit up front with me, please?
Yeah, Sean.
We have people with a lot more talent than me here.
David's not here, right?
No.
That way, if you have specific questions for the docs, you can certainly ask them. Is it just you guys? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. As I go out and I'm doing my station visits and I'm visiting with all the firefighters and all the companies, I get a lot of EMS questions, and then at times the EMS questions get cut off by the fire questions. So I wanted to make sure EMS had an equal opportunity for a voice. It is the majority of what we do out there. It's extremely important, and I want to make sure that I hear everything that you all have to say so that we can actually start working on it and we can make a difference, okay? I can't sit here and promise you that you're going to have a complete EMS reorg, because that would be completely insane right now, because I can't promise that. But I can promise that we will put all these ideas together and we will work on it. I know the union has put together a plan for a reorg. That will be taken into consideration, but we also need to have as many of you put input into this as possible. We want to hear your voice. The docs are up here with me because they've been here from inception. They know what's going on with the system. They know how it works, and I want them to have the opportunity to speak to things that you may bring forward that ultimately I can't answer, but they very well could. So with that, thank you for having me. Thank you for wanting to have a voice in this and for being here. And with that, I'm going to open it up to you. We're going to take notes. I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Please know I've only been here 4 months. I'm trying to learn as fast as I can, but I have a lot to learn. So one of the reasons why I'm here as well. So please, the floor is yours. Don't be shy. You know, ask whatever questions you may have. And thank you to Pikesville for hosting this. No, yes. Director Schenning said, now on to bloodborne pathogens. Please come up to the microphone if you have questions so that those that are online can hear what you're asking as well. Or have a mic. Yes, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Chief Rund. Hi, Docs. Hi. My name is Paramedic Belcher. I'm 15 or so year veteran. And more than a question, it's more of a statement, and I have written it for you, and I have also printed a copy for you as well.
Perfect.
It's going to take a little less than 3 minutes, so. Chief Rund, as you have demonstrated, leadership begins by example. The fact that you've taken not only your valuable time, but also your deliberate and thoughtful consideration in listening to us shows a leadership characteristic that we were desperately craving. We are craving that from an EMS standpoint as well. EMS is a complex and constantly evolving field. Our call volume is steadily increasing, our educational demand is increasing, and in turn, our stress levels are increasing. I can only speak for myself when I say, feel an effective leadership presence in EMS. I don't know if anyone here agrees with me or not. If so, maybe you can. In fact, a dramatic corrosion of the relationship between high-level EMS leaders and field personnel. This is displayed through spoken and unspoken reciprocal loss of confidence. I could hypothesize why and how this has come to fruition, but instead I would rather be positive and list the traits I would really like to see in a future EMS leader. A passion for EMS, a willingness to take ownership of us for what we are and for what we can be, the ability to listen thoughtfully to subordinates and not shut us down, a clear vision for the Baltimore County Fire Department EMS going forward, and the ability to convey this vision to the field. Also a plan in order to enact that vision. They must have empathy for their peers and their subordinates, a plan to identify educational disparities, provide appropriate education remediation, and not keep mistakes of providers a secret. This is an opportunity to learn and grow. I'll be open to new ideas and change, and be present. Come into the field. Work beside us, build relationships with us. These are just a few qualities that, in my opinion, are currently lacking and desperately needed for us to move forward in a positive way. I look at our EMS system now as a body without all of its bones. We're functioning, sure. Things are moving, yes, but we are by no means optimized or even close. We need support in order to function well. We need a full skeleton. I understand that we're on a tight budget, and that line items need to be prioritized. Money is necessary for some things, but there are many changes we can make for free. You can throw 100 ambulances at the providers, and they're still going to ask for more. However, valuing your greatest asset, the providers, costs no money, and then you reap the benefits. If you make providers feel supported and appreciated, valued, then they find a way to make the best out of what they have. Feeling valued is a key indicator in job performance. Employees who feel valued are more likely to be engaged in their work and feel satisfied and motivated. Simple psychology that has somehow been too difficult to achieve. The fact is that we're losing seasoned EMS providers daily to burnout, apathy, bridging, and general loss of interest in continuing down the thankless, dead-end road of EMS. How much does a paramedic new hire cost versus doing literally anything to try and keep experienced people in EMS where they're most needed? I could go on for hours about needing a reorg, the reasons to implement community medicine, not being able to eat after running 14 calls, or the 1,000 other EMS topics I'm passionate about. But when it comes down to brass tacks, we need a proper EMS leader. We need a trusted ringmaster to elevate us from a 3-ring circus to the greatest show on earth.
Thank you. That was very well said, and you're right. It seems like it doesn't matter how many supplies or how many units or how much equipment or the best fire station you can throw at people, but you're absolutely right. Our people are our #1 resource. I've said that from the day that I've gotten here, and I will continue to say that. I am a people's fire chief. I'm no other. I tell you from the beginning, I don't have any money for you. I really don't. You tell me what you need. Your hierarchy of needs has to be met first. My focus will be on that first and foremost. Your welfare is extremely important to me. Don't let that go underestimated. So we definitely will work on this. You tell me what we need to do to make this better. I already know. Let's get those crews out there and let's get you replaced. If you need to be off duty, if you're coming off duty, let's do this. How do we do this? The captains, the officers, everyone in the station has to work in sync to make this happen. And everyone needs to understand EMS is the number one thing that we do out there. Everything else should be in support of that. So don't underestimate my support for you, please. It's here. And thank you. That was extremely well said. Thank you. Next. Doc, do you have anything? I'm sorry.
Is there a microphone? Can you hear me? Okay. I think I appreciate what you're saying, and I think what hurt me the most in terms of hearing that is the perception of the value that we have for you. You guys should recognize that we see every day the data with regard to what's happening in this county and what you're doing. These are the best EMS providers in the state in this county. The overall job that we're doing here is fantastic. It's wonderful. And I think that we're not doing a good enough job of making that clear and appreciating it and letting you know how much we appreciate it and how much the leadership in the fire department appreciates it. But there's no question that that's true. I mean, we look at numbers with regard to the CARES data and our resuscitation rates, and we're the gold standard. When you look at other jurisdictions around us, there are many that have a lot more resources than we do. I think that was part of what we just heard, is that we need more resources in it, but they don't do as much with as little. So understand that regardless of those challenges that we just heard about, you're still delivering at a fantastic level on a day-to-day basis.
Doc, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I would just echo what the words that were said. You know, I think that the importance, so what we're experiencing in the field and a lot of what you're sharing, people are experiencing in all fields, right? Those of us who work in the hospitals, we're feeling the exact same pressure. So not to minimize any of that, I think it's exceedingly important. You guys are the ground truth, right? You guys, hearing what you're experiencing is exceedingly important, and I think it's important to make sure that we're moving forward, right? That we have new leadership, we have opportunities to work together, we have opportunities to hear what's important, and a renewed start or a renewed opportunity to just continue to move forward in an exceedingly productive way.
Okay, I apologize. Go ahead.
Is this on? Yes. So along the lines of trying to come up with some ways of relieving provider stress in the field, I've been talking with one of my paramedics, Travis Over, off and on for a while. We've come up with a couple ideas and kind of building off some of our conversations, creating some positions up at headquarters or at the academy or wherever they may fall, of having, for example, maybe a research paramedic position, that you have certain parameters that a paramedic may submit a proposal for a research project that they want to do that would benefit the fire department in the end. If it costs money, they have to apply for a grant or whatever they may need to do to supply for that project. 6 months, 12 months, it gives them a break from night works. It gives them a break from the stress from the field, running calls. It allows them to see the other side of the world of EMS, of the research side and the administrative side, and actually affect change in a lot of ways. Because unless you actually work on a committee or go to school, which is not for everyone, you don't get a chance to work on a lot of those projects. And if you do want to promote, you don't have those projects to have worked on to say, hey, I worked on this project and this project. So it does give providers a chance to do that. So a research project, your position is held in the field. So when you're done, you go back to where you were before. That way you've had a mental break and you are able to actually affect change, and you make it for all levels. It's not just reserved for EMS either. Fire can do it as well. I think it would be something that may cost little money and be an excellent way to reduce mental stress and mental problems with our providers in the field that have just burnt out, and not have to go off of work, but allow them to maintain their job, but get better as well. So just an idea on how to come up with some ideas, because everybody's got many talents and many good ideas. So we could come up with something for all levels.
Thank you.
So, and I appreciate that. There are some things going on at MIMS throughout the state now. They have a new thing. It's not real new. It's a couple years, but a research interest group, and they're looking for different things to actually do more EMS related research. We've been fortunate. We did some. Matter of fact, one of them is here, and the other one was a volunteer that came up, who's also in med school, that did some work with us on our airway project and put together an abstract and a presentation that we were going to submit for publication. So those avenues are certainly there for people who want to get involved in research. And one thing that I'm real proud of in this department is the medical oversight that we have. We have Dr. Pollack as the medical director, and just in the last couple weeks to months, we brought on several other physicians. So the level of physician involvement in our program, whereas it may not filter down to everybody there, we have some robust discussions concerning interpreting research and things we want to implement within EMS. And we have several very active physicians that we probably should be a little bit better broadcasting that stuff out. But for people who are interested in research, please call up to the EMS office. If it's something we can work on and it's something we can run past the physicians at our meetings, there's certainly an avenue to do that.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks again to Pikesville for what they've done tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Doug Simpkins, Captain Emeritus from Arbutus Volunteer Fire Department. Yeah, the old man's been riding fire trucks and ambulances for 50 years. Stop it. I also represent the Maryland State Firemen's Association, serving on their executive board. So my purpose here tonight is to gather this information that we are having in Baltimore County and share it with the other jurisdictions throughout the state, who are exactly, and I can tell you this, people, sitting in some of those executive board meetings. You won't believe the crap that's going on out there. Okay, if Joe, the tow truck driver, doesn't feel good that day, he can't pick up Aunt Mary down the road at the bakery to go to his call in Western Maryland. So they're waiting 25 minutes for at least a BLS unit to show up. Thank God we do not have that problem here in Baltimore County. However, we are starting to stretch it a little bit. I'm going to deal with specifics, okay? When you have the 5th due medic unit respond non-emergency strictly to handle a refusal, that's incorrect, okay? It's a BLS skill. There are BLS people on the fire engines, both career and volunteer, that can handle this, freeing up the medic unit from you're not going to get from Arbutus to Woodlawn and in 20 minutes after 3 o'clock. You just, non-emergency, you just ain't doing it. Okay, and we're tying up units with that. Couple other questions. When the medic units are downgraded to BLS unit, especially when the EMS lieutenant is out of service doing whatever they're doing, okay? And I'm going to leave it at that. Okay? When you ride by a station and the EMS vehicle is sitting there and you have to ask, are they available? Can they come with us? That should not occur. The downgrading to BLS units. I know, and speaking with another hat on as a taxpayer, if I need a medic unit, I need a medic unit. And the career medic units are there, but when they're downgraded, we have an issue with, I have an issue with that as a taxpayer, okay? The other item, Paramedic Belcher, your letter, it hit the wall with career and volunteers on the wall, okay? What you said covers all of us in this room, career or volunteer, and I applaud you for that. The other things are, how about a change in EMS infrastructure, which we've touched on here, adding additional EMS personnel to cover the battalion when the EMS officer is up at the Crystal Palace shuffling papers, or whatever they do up there. I don't care, okay? Private ambulance companies and their existing contracts. Now, I'm going to use Kaiser Permanente down on Twin Springs. They have a contract with a private ambulance company, and it's a 90-minute, usually a 90-minute response time to that facility to move the patient who, after 23 hours, the doctors at Kaiser couldn't figure out what it was, so they want them to go to the ER. Well, they don't want to wait 90 minutes, so they call 911. And the paramedics that I know go over there, they'll say, what's the paperwork? Where's the paper? Well, we got to find it. You've been here 20 hours, can you find something to write on? Yeah, and these are actual stories that have come out and been passed to me. And everyone knows that I'm kind of shy when it comes to speaking, so that's the way it is. So I understand, Chief, the 4 months thing. My God, lady, bless you, okay? Some of us are still surprised you're here, okay? You walked into a hornet's nest, okay? You can't make chicken salad out of chicken, okay? Fill in the blank. But at least you're doing it. You're taking a shot at it. You are opening up, and everybody is open. And the people here totally appreciate what's going on, because we've been blindsided. We've been like the bastard children, okay? You put them in a room and just throw candy bars at them and let them eat candy bars. We need the open communications. We need positive leadership, and we need to work together. Thank you very much for your time.
You want to say anything to that?
There was a lot there. I'm not sure where to begin. The one comment that I have is this concept of the 5th due unit responding halfway across the county is, from my perspective, a huge threat to the safety of the citizens of the county. We have to figure out how to do better than that. And that's not just us here. It's us here, and this is the point I wanted. I was kind of leveraging off what you said to sort of make this point. The emergency departments are holding our rigs and our people for way too long, and it's not okay. But we can't do anything about it unless you tell us. All right, and the problem is that it's not every anecdotal situation that we can do something about. The state will allow us to do something about it when we get to situations where individual patients are put at risk. So what I want to ask people, please, when you get to a situation where you're in a prolonged wait time, we know there is a protocol with regard to who to call when. In other words, when to call the district officer, when the shift commander gets notified. But if you get into a situation where there is a patient, an individual patient who's put at risk, please, I'm not asking for a book, a paragraph, a couple of sentences describing it, get it to the district officer, and they'll get it to me. I can tell you that even very recently, when that has happened, The state has responded and responded very, very firmly, and they will. But you wouldn't believe, we hear constantly, and I know, you just have to listen to the radio. Any single night, there are units backed up everywhere. But when a patient gets put at risk because of it, we can do something about it. And please, let us know and just give us some detail. Thank you.
Lieutenant Mike Fold, EMS 8D. I've been a district officer for 13 years. I'm going to take some exception, Doug, to what you said, because the 28 district officers and 4 shift commanders are some of the hardest working people in this fire department, looking out for their people, making sure that complaint investigations are handled, making sure we're getting medic units out of the hospital, working with the hospital, reviewing reports, making sure that quality assurance. So I take exception that we're not doing anything, because we're some of the hardest working people looking out for our people, plain and simple. And there are a lot of issues in this county, and it's not, you're right, it's statewide. The hospital's holding our units hostage and feeling frustrated because we can't do anything about it. And I will applaud you for the 2 violations that were levied against Northwest that opened some eyes over there and have eased up the system a little bit. And maybe that needs to happen a little bit more.
I didn't name any names.
I didn't. I am. You know, I'm at a point where it doesn't matter to me anymore, because something's got to be done. And I can tell you, after 25 years, feeling like a second-class citizen because my career has stayed in EMS, that has been what I've dealt with. You know, I've heard fire captains in the past, they ruined the last good fire station in the county by putting Medic 2 in service. Really? I mean, most of our calls are EMS, all right? That's inappropriate, okay? Complaining about going out and helping these folks lift somebody up because they've got a 30-year career, because we ruined your dinner, all right? You've got to reheat your dinner. Most of them don't get a chance to eat dinner. They don't get a chance to sit down and eat. You know, we have got to stop treating EMS like second-class citizens. And there's a lot of education on the other side of the coin to get that done. And it's going to take time. You know, the one other issue that kind of hits home for me is taking care of the E shift and the M2 shift and getting them off on time. All right? We tried to work that out, and our recommendation, especially on M2, was let them go out of service. And that was, you know, at midnight. You know, they got to come back the next day. They got to work 5 days a week. All right? Having them out there till midnight, 1 a.m. is ridiculous. There's got to be an answer to that.
Anyone want to speak to it?
That's what we had spoken about.
Okay. We actually had a discussion earlier today, just so you know, about the E shift and the M shift and the hours and how we could possibly staff or come up with, we talked about how the fire crews actually will send a unit out or send a utility out to relieve crews on scene, and how that is not existent in the EMS side. So we were having a strong discussion today about how we could supplement that and how we can make that happen. So please know that is in a very high-level discussion right now.
Hello, my name is Dovie Spiegelman. I'm a second EMS lieutenant here at Pikesville. I have a lot of ideas. Some of them are not all thought out, so I'm not going to say all of them. But some of my main ideas were touched on significantly already, but I just want to reiterate. Some sort of mobile integrated health system will significantly decrease the call volume or the quality of calls that we have. Will be, actually deserving of going to an ER. Again, sending a non-emergency, more than fifth due medic unit to take an IV out of a patient's arm. That's kind of ridiculous. I won't say the name of the facility, to a nursing home in Parkville. And I applaud Union Memorial Hospital because I've never been there for more than 5 minutes with a patient on my stretcher. I would love to see St. Joe's Hospital and GBMC Hospital sit in Union for 3 days, see how they do it, and do that. two more big things for me. There are some EMS systems that allow their providers to tell patients you don't need to go to the hospital. I would love to see that implemented here. If we have a splinter, if we have somebody who was literally just left their doctor's office and got all their labs drawn, EKGs done, whatever they needed to get done, and then they were feeling the same symptoms, getting kind of nervous and wanted to come back, get another evaluation, why should we have to take that person to the hospital? Obviously, if anything's different, that's a different story. Hang on. If we can somehow be able to not do EMEDS reports for things like canceled calls, upgrading a fire piece, no patient. Okay, no patient I kind of get we should do an EMEDS call for, but really canceled calls and upgrading units, it's a big drain, especially if for me at Pikesville with the volunteers, EMEDS is one of the biggest reasons that I don't get people riding my ambulance. It probably is the biggest reason. Everybody likes driving emergency vehicles, right? But nobody likes doing EMEDS. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for me. And I really love the stress on changing the way that EMS providers are treated. The second-class citizens, as EMS 8 Lieutenant Fold was saying, I see that you're actively trying to change that, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Anything you want to hit on?
So I appreciate a lot of those comments, but I think there's pieces of it that warrant a response, and that's the no transport piece. The ability to evaluate a patient, the splinter in the finger is an extreme example, right? But and it happens. I get it. I've been doing this for a long time. But the ability to evaluate somebody in the field who feels different and says, I want to go to the hospital, is not in the scope of practice of a paramedic. Simply isn't. And telling somebody, yeah, you had labs yesterday, but your symptoms are the same. They called, all right? The symptoms may be exactly the same. Everything may be exactly the same, and I'll give you that 95% of the time that's true. But there's a 5% number. And I can tell you that the most egregious examples of not egregious, it's not the right word, but the worst examples of patients with adverse outcomes dying as a result of our care have been when we've left them behind. That's the most dangerous thing that we do in the field, is leave someone behind. When I'm out there, and it's not as much as it used to be, I'll guarantee you that, but when I'm out there, I can't tell, all right? It's difficult to tell. But that decision that you don't need to go to the hospital right now, that's not in the scope of practice. It really isn't. And it's not in the curriculum either, okay? I can tell you, having been involved in paramedic textbooks now for 20 years, it's not a chapter in the book. When do you not need to go? And it's frustrating. And I'll get back, it's frustrating because it's just not easy to do it. Documentation requirements are too high for taking somebody with a minimal complaint, and the wait times are too long once you get there.
Along those lines, what about being able to call them an Uber and sending them to an urgent care? Having certain protocols, or even being able to transport them to an urgent care.
Yeah. So that's there will likely be state protocols that allow that within the near future. And I agree. There are alternative destinations that may make more sense. But the reason that's easier is because you don't have to wait at the urgent care, whereas you have to wait at the emergency department, right? The Uber getting them to care is an answer. That is an acceptable answer. But we don't have state protocols right now that allow that, and we can't flex at the county level to do that. But I hear you. Those are reasonable things to think about.
And one thing you brought up was the mobile integrated health. And that's something that's new, and especially with the ET3 that's going around, where they're letting 40, basically, departments across the country pilot this. There's a lot to look into that, and it's something we have been talking about. One thing that is we're starting to do, and there's a few people that are in this room that are on the committee as we're looking for that, is, and I don't know if we'll call it mobile integrated health, I don't know how we'll call it, but one of the things that we're going to look at is some of those non-emergency needs, looking at some of our high utilizers. So we're kind of informally doing this right now. We're working with a lot of other agencies. Just within the last couple of months, we have a public health nurse who is up at our headquarters building, and we're putting a platform in for basically an intra-agency referral program. So one thing that's going on across county government with the new administration that has come in, they're starting to do strategic planning at the administrative level for county administration, and that's filtering down. We're starting to do some strategic planning in the fire department as well, and much of that we want with EMS is if our strategic plan fits into the county strategic plan, it works pretty good that way for budgeting because everything's lining up and we're all working in the same direction to meet the same plan. So one of the things that we found as we got together with other county agencies, a lot of people just really didn't know what else was available around the county. What other agencies are out there? And it kind of blew my mind one day when one of the directors of one of the other agencies was talking about grant money that they had that they could potentially have to give back, because what they had this grant money for was to fix people's houses and do home improvements on rental properties. And they just didn't have enough referrals that were coming into them. And I was just sitting there dumbfounded saying, we have medics that are out there every day that walk up and fall through a step, or they almost hurt themselves because they're grabbing onto a bad handrail or something like that. We can make referral after referral. And the same thing goes with some of these other patients that may not have immediate medical needs, but have psychological needs, social needs, behavioral health needs, of which we're doing a lot of work with the health department when it comes to the opioid crisis. So I've always described what EMS and first responders, whether that be fire, EMS people, police, we're very good at two things. We're very good at identifying the problem and making a referral to the appropriate agency. We just have to be able to coordinate those agencies. And now we're starting to put a mechanism in place where we're going to be starting a referral program. Tammy here's on the committee that's doing that, a few other ones that are in the room that have been assisting that, so that we can make those interagency things. And what we found with her, even before we've kicked this out to get started, is we're already driving some of the calls down. Some of the stuff that we're doing with the opioid crisis, with the Narcan leave behind, we do work with the health department. We meet with them monthly, and we're seeing a drive down in fire department responses. Does that mean that the opioid crisis has gotten better? Absolutely not. The only way to really tell if that's getting better is to count dead bodies, and the fire department doesn't do that. That's more the state medical examiner. But what we do know is our responses are going down for that, and the number of Narcan, because the market now is saturated more with the Narcan that's out in the community. So recently we started with the Narcan Leave Behind program to help aid into that. And as a benefit, as a secondary thing, we are seeing less calls for that. So there are some of the things that we're doing to work in that direction. And what we're hoping to see here soon is a way to have the supervisors, wherever he was, while they're sitting up there doing whatever they do, we're going to, but we'll have the mechanism to make that referral. And I can tell you, we've worked through Michael probably. I know what he's getting ready to say. We've had some incredibly complicated cases, and not all the times did we take them to the hospital. We were able to get them the appropriate referral. And the two things that I've always said whenever we're putting something like this together is, one, it's got to be inherently safe. We have to make sure that whoever calls, we cannot mess up if we don't take them to the hospital. But some of these referrals are actually helping, and we got to remember, in a non-judgmental way, there is always a patient on the other end of that line that called. And what is an emergency to us, we may say it's not an emergency, and it may be a big emergency to them. And they may not be very good at describing some things. They may say, I just don't feel well. And next thing you know, they just didn't feel well. And then we don't take them to the hospital, and then they have catastrophic outcomes later just because they weren't very good at articulating their complaints. They didn't follow the textbook that Dr. Pollack helped write. So but they're the kind of things that we would look at. And I think that in the future, you're going to see EMS take more of that community role, and I think it's coming.
I was going to say, to back up what Rich said, the nurse administrator for the district officers, if you have a recurrent user that is an issue that, Donna got things done within a half a day that took me in previous attempts with social services to get done in a week. She was done in a half a day because she has the right contacts, and it works. We don't have that constant calling of that address anymore. So for the district officers, that nurse administrator that's on the 4th floor, get to know her, work, tell her what your problem is, and she'll take care of getting things started, and it works. That's one of the biggest improvements I've seen, and thank you, Rich, for that.
Yep, and in short order, I think you're going to see a referral mechanism that we're going to be able to do from the field.
Canceled, hit for a call, canceled, hit for a call, canceled, and then finally get a call that I go to. Now there are all those niffers I have to do. So why can't the suppression folks that get to sit at the station for hours at a time do the EMS sniffers? Some stations, some captains will do that, but yeah. So another item is, and it's already been touched on, is getting people off work. There is technically an SOP out there, a formal SOP for relief for the 24/7 units, but the M shifts, blah, 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 kind of aren't really addressing that. Plus, and I mentioned this to you in the past when I met you at 1, was that there is every shift in every station in this department is its own department. There is no consistency. My captain may relieve units, M shifts, and such in one manner, and then I could be detailed to another station and call a station at 4:30 and say, I have a patient on a stretcher, can you send somebody out? And that captain will be like, well, that's not the way I do it. I want you to wait another 45 minutes and call me. So there has to be a consistent policy that's enforced. That, just because somebody's shirt's white and they're 5 years from retirement, they don't get to do what they want to do in their own station. So, and here's something else that, so I worked in the city as a paramedic for some time, and there we had a rehab policy. So, obviously the city's a lot busier than here, but, even on Medic 17, I can go out the door at 4 o'clock and not come back till midnight. So we had a policy where if we're getting, beat around pretty good, I can call my EMS officer who can contact BC EMS because they have, their own battalion chief, and they can put you out of service for rehab for 30 to 40 minutes. And they may say, okay, well, we're swamped right now, give us an hour, or we have another medic out right now, give us, an hour and a half, and we'll put you out next. But at least that you're going to have a 30 to 40 minute time to eat, to not rush, be able to use the toilet with, and relax for a couple minutes. That, I don't think that would cost that much money. So this is gonna, and I know this is gonna rub some people in this room wrong, but there has to be an audit of volunteer stations. there are too many that either, like in the Central Battalion, there's one that doesn't have an EMS unit, one that can barely get out. And a call from one of those two jerk boxes, and I'm not going to mention what their numbers are that might begin with a 3, that can tie up the entire county. If I have to go up north to a number of the 3 box, then 1 has to come up and fill in for me, then 10's coming over to 1. Next thing you know, you have 2 coming over to run a 1 box because 17 had to go up north. So there has to be an audit of that, and there has to be accountability held to the volunteer stations. Yeah, another thing is, on weekends, and this would cost, I don't know, it could probably be worked out in a way, I don't know, that's up for you. But so on a Friday night, I might be out till 2 in the morning on times, but Medic 117 sits there. Medic 101 sits there, unmanned. But yet 1 hasn't been back to the hospital at all. I haven't been back to the station. 11 hasn't been back to the station. But you have these medics just sitting there not running calls because they won't staff them at peak hours. I know the city has a critical alert system where they will put medics in service even if it's just for a few hours to relieve it. I'm told there's some type of system here for that, but I've never seen it used. So, and then to circle back to our earlier conversation about the what I call 911 abuse, and I'll refine it so that we're not talking about going to a grandmom's house and saying, "Oh, you're okay, you can wait, go to your doctor tomorrow." But I'm talking about like serial abuse from institutions, nursing homes, assisted livings. If I go to Stella Morris for somebody is a DNRB with bad labs for 2 days, and they hand me an actual LifeStar paperwork because they got tired of waiting for LifeStar to come, there should be a way that I can make a phone call and say, here's the patient, here's what's going on. I shouldn't have to be able to take them. That is technically, in name, a skilled medical facility. So they should be able to control that patient until LifeStar or Heart to Heart or Pulse or whoever finally gets out there to take them. So that's my, like I just said, refining of something that can be done to help relieve call volume without just saying you don't need to go to the hospital. So, and this has been circulating. We can, if you would like this copy of these talking points.
I would love that.
Okay.
I would love that. Also, can I speak to, you mentioned 2 policies in the city. Can you get them for me?
I can try.
I'd like to take a look at them.
Okay, all right. All right.
Docs?
I want to comment on the nursing home issue that you brought up. What you describe is clearly abuse of the 911 system. It shouldn't happen, and there's right now not a damn thing we can do about it, unfortunately. We need to work with DHMH. MIMS needs to work with DHMH, who have the authority over the nursing homes, to stop to define what the limits of that should be and could be. We don't have the ability to do that, but you're absolutely right, and it's a threat to the people out in the citizens in the street who actually have an emergency, call 911 and can't get somebody there in a timely fashion because we're sitting in a nursing home taking somebody with labs that came back 2 days ago that somebody just found to the hospital. I've tried to reach out to the nursing facilities and say you can't do that anymore, and they look at me like I got one eye in the middle of my head and say, well, as long as we keep calling 911, you keep coming, we're going to keep doing it, basically.
Well, can I offer a suggestion that I understand where your point is, but then can the county create like even just a Google Doc that we all have access to, that every time we experience one of these, we can actually call number, brief, no HIPAA information, but just brief scenario of what it was, and then that way, legit data.
That would be extremely valuable because that's something I could share with the Secretary of DHMH and say, we got to do something on the nursing home side to block this. This is sort of, I say it's a statewide problem, but the truth is we got more nursing homes in Towson in that area than any other single area in the state. So we are disproportionately affected by it. So yes, that's something we should be looking at more carefully.
Thanks.
Most of you may know me. I'm Lieutenant Jenny Barshinger.
Get closer to the mic.
I'm a little shy.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Most of you may know me. I'm EMS 7, A shift, and Jenny Barshinger. And I wasn't planning on saying anything tonight, but what I hear from, it's the same message, and it's a message of frustration. It's a message that you don't feel valued and that you're not appreciated in what you do. I always say that EMS is a business, and that should be run like a business. And one of the main properties of a business is people. And you have internal customers and you have the external customers. And the internal customers of a business is the people that work for the organization, and that's everybody that's here. And if they're not valued and they're not appreciated, then everything is going to become frustrating, and it's going to build like a pyramid, but coming down crashing. So the frustrations of the calls that people don't feel are worthy to be transported, or abuse of 911. If we get back to the basics of a business, the people, strategic objectives, these things that bother us are just basically the surface. I don't know if that makes sense. If we take care of the people, take care of their basic needs, if we have issues, have a plan to solve those issues, meaning strategic objectives. We know as an organization we have a mission statement and we have goals, and that should be trickled down into each independent part of the organization, and EMS is one of those. And if we have a problem, then why can't we have a group of people that work on a strategic plan to solve that problem? And once the needs are met of the people, and we can actually have a voice in solving the problems, what seems to be like the big issues, I think, are going to go away. Because we're going to be happier and our needs are going to be met. You guys aren't eating. You're not getting proper rest. Trying to think of ways, to get your basic needs met. And when it's brought up, and when solutions are offered, I literally was told that, they knew what they were getting into when they took this job. And that's from your leaders. We can brainstorm. That's part of strategic planning, is brainstorming. And then through brainstorming, we can come up with a plan. And if we can come up with a plan, we can come up with a solution. This is a business. We take care of customers. You guys are the customers, and the patients are our customers. So, even though these patients that get on our nerves because they call, they're our customer. And we got to take care of them no matter what. And what's an inconvenience to you, it's their emergency. And I don't like to hear anybody complain about somebody else's emergency. That doesn't make sense. They come to us because they ran out of options. I'm not necessarily talking about the nurses' homes calling, about labs. But we got to look at these patients and the people that are calling us as people, as individuals, as somebody's loved one. And they need to be treated with respect and be given the best care that we know how. And if that means transporting them because they don't feel well, then let's transport them, and let's do it with a smile. I think the bottom line is our people's needs aren't being met. So it's coming out in anger, frustration, and then if we just get back to the basics of business, maybe we can solve some issues.
Jen, you also mentioned some things this afternoon, and I asked you to bring them up tonight. Do you remember what they are?
I do.
Thank you.
So part of a just culture, and I've heard people try to emphasize that Baltimore County EMS wants to embrace the just culture philosophy. I'm not so convinced that we do. And if has everybody heard of the just culture terminology? So basically, just culture says that that when something happens, you know, if a provider makes a mistake, that it's not. We got to look at it from all angles. We got to look at what brought that provider to making that mistake. Was it just the pure ignorance of the provider? Did the organization have a part of it? Were they not trained? Was it lack of education? But we got to look at all the reasons why that got them to that point. And it's just not to be punitive to the provider. So just culture says, let's look at the whole picture and try to solve the problem from there, not necessarily on a punitive level. Now, there are going to be times that people make, grievance mistakes that, have to be addressed. But if we want our providers to perform and to give the best care and feel confident in what they're doing and not be afraid that if they make a mistake that they can't own it, because if they own it, they're going to get in trouble. So just culture says that's not going to happen, that we can sit down, we can have case reviews, talk about it and find out what led them to that point and then how to fix it. So with that being said, every second day we have a conference call between EMS supervisors. And on the call yesterday, it was mentioned that exposures, and you had said something about, let's talk about bloodborne pathogens, let's talk about bloodborne pathogens. Is it true that there's conversation that if a provider has an exposure that there's looking for punitive consequences?
That's not something we've ever said. What we have said in the past is something that we do have to look at. I'll see you up there, Stan. What we have said is a just culture looks at the root cause of things happening.
Right.
And one of the things, and I wasn't on that call, so I don't know exactly what the words were that was said, but at some point, it would be appropriate to actually counsel someone who goes in on a knowing call. You have a trauma patient, or and I believe how it was presented to me was a patient that is flipping out and they're spitting at you and they're doing all that, and then you go in, you don't put any protective gear on. Would I want to talk to that person afterwards? Absolutely. We've been saying for a long time now that even out at dispatch, as we roll out the bloodborne pathogens, and I've been communicating with the district officers, that we haven't been ordering any masks from supply. So if we're never ordering them, it means we're never using them. And we did talk about, what is the thing there? If you were to go into a fire and you never put your BA on, the company officer would probably say something to you about that. You should use the gear that we provide you. But to say that we would absolutely discipline for somebody, no, absolutely not. We wouldn't have said that.
Well, if you go into a call, you're not anticipating somebody spitting on you.
That's totally different. That's absolutely totally different. But when you walk in, when
the masks that
somebody
were
is,
provided, we can't see through. And so we can't actually, work with them. I could see using them, for intubation or if we're going into a childbirth, but we can't prepare for everything that we go into. We go in with our gloves and we take, reasonable precautions as we see, as the call develops. But to be able to predict everything that's about to happen, you can't do that. You can only be
yeah, I know where you're going to.
So the just culture algorithm is intended to help us walk through each one of those cases. Pick the case, pick the scenario, and decide what went wrong. Was it that the equipment wasn't available? Was it that we didn't have the right kind of equipment available? Was it that we didn't have the right information going in? Was it avoidable? Or was it reckless behavior?
Right.
And the just culture says that not everything, most things are caused by system failures and system errors and are correctable that way. And for the overwhelming majority of the time, punitive response is not what you start with. But when you have situations, and we know it's a big department, there's going to be them, and they're going to stick out because they're the ones that make people worry, but they're the tiny minority. But when you have something that represents egregious, reckless behavior, that's a different response under the algorithm.
Absolutely, and I totally agree.
But the job of the group under the just culture algorithm is to walk through that and figure out what it was and talk through it. And at the 90% level, the 95% level, my experience, 99% level, You don't get there. You get to a system error, a system process that can be addressed, an educational process that can be addressed.
I was just afraid that if we're sending a message out that exposures are going to become punitive, that the providers aren't going to report exposures because they'll be afraid that
That's absolutely correct. If you send that message, that's what the response will be. Then that's why we've tried over the years to tell people that medication errors, for the most part, those aren't punitive responses.
Right.
That when you make a mistake and you raise your hand, you say, "Hey, I just made a mistake," and we talk about it, those aren't punitive responses. And that's what we've done consistently. And when we've gotten to punitive responses, and I'll look to stand in the back and others who've been involved in the QAs where we've gotten to punitive responses, I can't recall a time in the past 20 years when we've walked out where the union rep in the room didn't agree
Sure.
with the response that came out. And they're there to protect your interests. We're all there to protect your interests. We're there to protect everybody's interests. But the goal of all of these things is not to be punitive.
Exactly.
We can't afford to lose medics. We want it. We want to teach people. We want to make this place better, and it's worked. The quality of care that's delivered in this department is outstanding. But it's important that the district officers and everybody else encourage people to speak up when something goes wrong. And no, if you make an error that's associated with bloodborne pathogens, with exposures, and it's an honest error, and you raise your hand and speak up about it, our initial response is not punitive.
Well,
Hasn't been, and it shouldn't be.
I think a lot of these providers feel that a lot of times there's knee-jerk reactions and things are done on a punitive level if an error is made. And usually, and I know most of you in here, everyone in here wants to do well, wants to do a good job,
agree.
wants to take care of the patient. They don't want to make mistakes. So when mistakes are made, they need to be looked upon as an educational opportunity and why it happened. Now, there are times that, laziness comes into play, and there are providers out there that have done things that have been grievance, but for grievance. But for the most part, everybody in here wants to do a really good job and needs to be treated with a little bit more respect in that regards.
I agree with you completely.
Hi, I'm Tyler Armstrong. I'm the paramedic at Station 4 on B shift. I'm kind of a little bit selfish in regards to us with this request or whatever it really may be. I'm not really too sure what it is that I'm asking, actually. Relax.
Thank you for being honest.
So what I know is that we place units out of service for ORT. To check to see how our physical well-being is. We have to get yearly physicals. We have to get drug tests randomized, and obviously post-accident stuff like that. Hearing tests and all these other tests just to check on our physical well-being. I know that everyone in this room is very well aware. Within the past year and a half, we've had 3 very tragic instances happen with our providers in regards to mental health. I guess my proposal to this, which could be very wrong, and I am in no way, shape, or form educated enough to put anything in place with this, however you all clearly are. If we're able to put units out of service for 1 hour every once in a while, whatever those reasons be that we need to cover our bases, why is it that we could not place a unit out of service for an hour, hour and a half to speak with a counselor from EAP to ensure the well-being of our own providers, to make sure that they are in good mental health to perform their job, and to also provide an avenue? Because I also do feel like that I am newer here in the fire department, so speaking with some of my newer colleagues, not a lot of people are really sure about the EAP avenues and routes to seek mental health. And I think that's a big proponent now and something that we really need to look into. So I was just kind of curious if there's anything that we've looked into after these 3 big instances that have happened here in regards to making sure that our own people are safe.
So those are very good points, and I can tell you, since I have been here, if I hear about instances where we run tragic calls that I feel they're impactful on our crews, one of the very first questions I'm asking is peer support been alerted? Has anybody looked into those crews? how are they, what's happening. As far as anything further from that, I'll have to ask Rich whether or not we have anything further in place. I will tell you, peer support is very important to me, and I support it 100%. And we do need to broaden our program that we currently have here in the department. And I know very well how to do that, so.
We have a meeting scheduled, 13/11, with you next week on just this very topic, next Friday.
Okay.
30. So we will address it then, and we do have a list of contacts. We have been researching it, and we
Okay.
have some insights and information to pass off to you. And we look forward to doing it on Friday.
Okay,
So that is set up.
absolutely.
Thanks
Thank
for your
you
time.
for bringing that up, because that's very important.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kathleen Resnick. I'm president here at Pikesville. Sort of like the gentleman before me, I kind of have comments slash maybe a suggestion. So I've been here 28 years. I used to ride the Medic very frequently up until maybe 14, 15 years ago. I just recently, and when I say recently, within the last month, started riding the Medic again. So,
Welcome back.
Thanks. I've had quite an interesting, eye-opening experiences since then. Back years ago, you could get alerted from a call, run the call, go to the hospital, be back in quarters in 40 minutes. Today, for instance, I'll give an example. We were, I believe, 6th due into Towson at a nursing home, non-emergency, sick subject for a fever that they could easily have called a private ambo for. So we go over there, we go to, and I guess too what I want to say, maybe some of you know me, some of you don't. I actually can see from both ends because I'm a nurse and I work in some of the facility that's been mentioned, and I don't want to mention any names out loud. Oh, by the way, we have 280 people watching live stream right now.
Oh, nice.
So I don't really want to mention any names. Oh, 460 now. When I got in line, it was 280. So anyway, we transported that patient to a local hospital where we waited an hour to get triaged. Well, I was there for the hour, so my nurse experience, I also am a supervisor in a hospital, but also have ER experience. So I sat there and watched the employees at this facility, and not one person looked us in the eye, not one person spoke to us. There are multiple empty beds in the ER, and I know how an ER runs. Not one person communicated why we were waiting an hour to get triaged. Not one person. No one said hello, no one said good morning, not one thing nice, just ignored us. We stood there for an hour, finally got triaged, went back. I said good morning to everyone, and they all looked at me like I had 3 heads. I hope the facility I work at is not to that behavior. I do know that on my end, in my leadership role, I will go back and mention it to make sure that we are meeting and greeting people. Sometimes there are no beds. Sometimes you can't get a bed. I mean, that's going to happen, and we're coming into the busy season. Sometimes, for instance, our ER, we could have 15 to 18 crisis patients taking up half our ER beds that are holding for weeks for psych beds. There's nothing we can do about that. But it's communication. And I think maybe one of my suggestions is we go to these hospitals with meetings. When I say we, I mean you guys, and having the meetings and when there's a problem. But maybe before the busy season starts, go out to these hospitals and meet with their leadership and say, this is the perception from the EMS world. We're the ones that are bringing you your patients. You need to be pleasant. You need a smile. You need to communicate why you're waiting. Not one person communicated why we were waiting. We look around and see empty beds and think they're just ignoring us. Well, maybe there is another reason, but we don't know it because no one's talking to us. So maybe set up some meetings ahead of time with these facilities so when we are waiting, because we have to, because there's no other choice, we know why. That's just my suggestion. So.
And I agree. And it's a tough thing because what you're asking us to do is go out and just ask people who are frustrated because they're frustrated in their emergency departments. We're frustrated where at because we're running a lot of calls that some are, some aren't. You know, like you said, 95% of them probably aren't emergency, but some slip through the cracks. But what we're really asking there is people to just have basic civility between each other. And quite frankly, I don't know how I can be the one, or anybody up here could be the one that can fix that. That's just a problem that comes along, and it comes along with the frustrations of everything that people have brought up. But how do you just tell somebody to just be civil with the person next to you? And that's,
Years ago, back in the day, Lee Saxon ran the EMS for BCFA. And I can tell you when we had this issue with a couple of facilities, the leadership from the fire department and BCFA went into these ERs and met with their leadership and said, hey, just like you just described, it's on both sides, so they need that reminder.
We've had meetings with the leadership at that facility very, very recently. Little birdie in the front row helped me on that one. They'll hear about that one too tomorrow morning.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carolyn Brown, paramedic at 13B shift. I want to piggyback off of what, hello, Chief. I'm having a fangirl moment.
Nice to meet you.
Want to piggyback off of what Tyler was saying about EAP or our CISM team. Linda, who noticed something in me that I didn't notice, that I was going through an issue, set everything up, set me on my way, and it helped me out a lot. If we could try to work on something to have something semi-annually, quarterly, even if it's like a battalion training, to sit around and just powwow, because we might not see it, but someone else can see it, because we have this thing that we have to be stoic and strong and not really let things out. So that was one thing. And then also, going got a service for training. On the EMS side, no one comes in to fill in if we have to go to training. So we have to go there, still in service. We get there, we might be out of service. Then again, we might still be in service. And then a call come out, we have to go. We can't really digest the information that's being told to us. We can't sit and converse with everyone afterwards. We have to keep going, keep going. And I know that calls need to be ran, but a lot of times I would like to sit and get my peers' ideas on whatever we were talking about. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
My name is, I'm Recruit Whitlock from Middle River 74. I'm very excited to be here tonight. I'm actually a social worker and a doctoral student. On the Governor's Commission to study mental and behavioral health. I'm on the Crisis Services Subcommittee, and we are reviewing diversionary tactics within the community to create an integrated continuum of care to divert those mental health calls, of which we're finding out that it's at least 3% across the state of Maryland. I'm very interested in hearing what everybody is saying about self-care and mindfulness for providers. I've done a lot of harm reduction work in the community, both in the city and Baltimore County. And 4 years ago, during the uprising, I actually created an integrated mobile crisis unit, and we still exist in 21217. So a lot of times through the week, I usually go from Diamond Mall all the way down through the subways, and I talk to people about various different forms of harm reduction, anywhere from teaching Narcan trainings to fentanyl test strips. We do have fentanyl test strips in Baltimore City. I don't know if Baltimore County has the fentanyl test strips, but we have that, and I can help the county get access to that through the health department. And I guess my last comment that I wanted to say that I really appreciated with the graduating class, your statement on diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Can you make sure that we see each other at the end of this? Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
So, Chief, met with you in August, and I was waiting until after this EMS meeting to get some information together. You had asked for some emails, but for those that don't know, I'm Jack Amron. I started in EMS 30 years ago last month. There's probably some daggers being thrown at me because I'm now a fire captain, and people are like, you left EMS. No, I did not leave EMS. I kind of feel like EMS left me at a certain point. Kim and Rich are here. Kim, Rich, and I competed for EMS captain when we created the EMS captain position. I died number 1 on the list 3 times, the first 3 lists. Died number 1 on a battalion chief's list after a year and a half. There's a lot of politics, and so I applaud you for coming out, making culture change, looking at EMS, realizing that we need to do some different things. Doug and I have known each other for 30 years as well. Don't take offense, Doug, but yeah. I was in EMS for 21 years in this county. I did 11 years as EMS 6 and EMS 8. EMS supervisors don't just sit around, and we're not just driving around. And as I hated to hear that when I was in EMS, and now I'm hearing my fellow suppression captains do that. I can tell you on my shift, there's a couple things I talked to the guys before I came out here. First of all, welcome invitation to all our medical directors and EMS staff. Please come out and ride with us. I have a guy who's coming off probation, doesn't know what Dr. Pollock or Rich even looked like. Have no idea. They said they wouldn't recognize him if they walked down the street. So please come out and visit us. Come to dinner. We do dinner every night. It's not going to be healthy. Don't tell Laney. It's not healthy. Sorry, Ken. It's not healthy. But I mentioned Ken for a particular reason. I think this is a great thing in this fire department. Our 4 field division chiefs are paramedics. I don't know that that's ever happened in the past. All 4 of them came from EMS, grew up through EMS, and I think they went to suppression for the same reason I did. There was no promotional opportunity. We all tried. There was no place to go. We had 4 EMS captains when Rich and Kim got promoted, created a new position. We're still, that was how long ago, Rich? 6, 7, 8 years ago? We've added no EMS captains since then. So I think it's great that our leadership is EMS. They understand where we came from. I'd like to invite everybody in the EMS leadership to come out and ride with us. Let us know you're coming. We'll make sure we have enough. Some of the things we've done on my shift that I'd like to see done elsewhere, I do all of the EMS sniffers. I don't give it to the EMS guys. I don't give it to the EMTs, although just about everybody in this fire department came in as EMS, so I agree with what's been said. The EMTs sitting at the kitchen table can do sniffers, but I do as many of them as I can. Turns out bad when I'm on vacation, because then my crew doesn't do them and they don't get done. BLS units. This may be controversial. I think dispatch is our biggest problem. Not dispatch, but dispatch the system. ALS is great. I think we can handle probably 70% of our calls using BLS units. Higher? Dr. Pollock's saying higher? Okay, we can handle a lot of our calls with BLS units. I think we over-dispatch, underutilize, and we're not using our BLS units the way we should be. Volunteers, I've been a volunteer for 30 years, so I feel I have the right to say this. Volunteers abuse the system in the fact that if they don't run ALS or don't upgrade, they don't have to wait at the hospital. They can call for an ALS upgrade on every call, and guess what? They go back to the station or go on the next call. They don't have to transport. If we start making more BLS transports, more BLS dispatches, I think we'll solve a lot of problems. And again, thank you for your openness and your welcomeness to improve EMS and recognize that we definitely need some changes.
Yep. No, just the comment is we are working towards, and as far as for me getting out, I've been saying for years since I came back into EMS, I would love to be able to get out in the field more. I do have some other responsibilities that I am working with the chief on trying to get away, wink, wink. So I'm patient because anybody knew me when I was in the field. I do love to work in the field, and I do love EMS. We were able to get, so there are 2 other EMS captain positions now since then, so we are up to 6. So it's progress. Is where I would like to be? No, I would like to certainly do more, but we have gotten 2 extra ones since then. So, but I appreciate. I remember the same thing going home telling my wife, "Honey, you ain't gonna see me for a couple weeks. I got to study because if you're not number 1, you're not getting made on that captain's list." And I prepared accordingly, but it was a lot, and it certainly was. So.
And I would just add that there are several of the new medical directors also are very active. several of the medical directors now on the team are very active in the field, riding both in cars to help support you guys, as well as riding within volunteer systems too. So would love to ride with others, but yeah. So I think that we are gaining that really important ground experience, and yeah, it's really difficult what's being faced. And I as well, like several others here, right, we face both sides of it. So we understand what's going on in the ED from the hospital side and the burnout and the stress, understaffing, under-resources, and all the challenges from that. But I do think that it provides really important insights that then we can continue to build together. Jeff, anything?
I'm sort of the quiet one, but not really. I hate to say this, but I've been doing this for 38 years. I started all the way at the bottom, and now I'm where I'm at. But a lot of the stuff you said I agree with. One of the things I notice is I spend the least amount of time with patient care. More of it's doing computer paperwork and waiting at the hospital. And then I have to come back and figure out, now I have to do a fire report. So, and it's frustrating, but I ride mostly on an ambulance still. I'll show up on the ambulance. I've experienced the Towson Vortex. I'll get here on a Saturday evening, and we'll get in there, and then 5 calls later, it's midnight, we're pulling back in the station. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And then the one benefit I think I have that over a lot of you don't is when they see me in the ER, they know that I'm going to start timing them and get every ambulance out of there quickly. I've done that on multiple occasions at multiple hospitals. But I think you're all right, and I think everything everyone's saying tonight is very helpful. There's nothing I've heard that's been bad in that respect. This is all very positive.
I also would like to add, just so you know, for those of you who do not know, we have a statistical analyst that's working with us, and we're keeping very close statistics and watching a lot of things and how we can streamline things. We are looking very closely at the NIFRs and how time-consuming it is and whether or not it's working and whether or not we're getting the detail out of the data that actually comes out of that reporting system. So unfortunately, things in administration do not work very fast. I'm sure you all have figured that out. But I'll repeat what I say to the stations when I go out and I talk to them. You all are used to respond, mitigate, move on. Respond, mitigate, move on. In administration, when you present us with a problem, we have to evaluate the problem, what it's going to take to solve that problem. Is it going to take funding? Is it going to take people? Is it just a simple move? And then we actually can implement it. Unfortunately, sometimes that takes time. So no, we are looking at those things that take time, and we are diving into them. And I promise you, we will work on them as diligently as possible to improve them. I know the paperwork is just a pain in the butt. Trust me, I do paperwork every day. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chief. I think somebody had a question over here, though.
Sure.
The young lady in the front. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to the BLS response and the ALS response. I think a lot of that has to do with fear. And I think that we need to instill not only confidence, but the trust that the administration has our backs, well, speaking for the BLS providers, to be confident in their decision to take a BLS transport versus calling for ALS. I feel like 90% of the time that I get called for an ALS upgrade, it's BLS, but they're not confident enough to make that decision, or confident enough that someone else reading the report is going to feel the same way. And even myself as an ALS provider on the scene, having the ability to tell them that it is BLS and it's okay, you can take it. And then thinking in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, who's going to be reading their report tomorrow? Who's going to be coming at me? Well, why wasn't this, you know what I mean? Always quarterbacking and not really giving BLS providers enough trust to make those decisions on their own and handle those calls that are truly BLS for ALS units on the street.
So I can tell you, of the list of things that we look at, and where we go back and second guess, like and look critically at decisions that people made, the decision to take something BLS and not upgrade it to ALS is not one that I see. It's not a problem. You're right. People are jumping the gun to upgrade to ALS when there's no clear-cut advantage to doing so. And there are times when there's a patient who's clearly ALS, but the time to get to definitive care is still faster just by going. And if you write that down, if you put that in your note, discussion's over. What's that? Yes. Discussion's over at that point. That's your judgment, and that's fine. Waiting 10 minutes for an ALS unit to arrive when you're 5 minutes from a hospital, that's just insane. But I get to decide that. So do it. Do it. We support it. There's not people, and if you get there as an ALS provider and you say this is a BLS transport, document it that way and make it a BLS transport. It's okay. If somebody's unsure and scared and wants help, always ask for help. Always ask for help. And if you're not sure, there's a doctor on the other end of the radio to ask. But you're right. It's not 70%, Jack. It's 80%. It's the tremendous amount of these calls are BLS calls. And good BLS care, there's very little that we do from an ALS perspective that's been demonstrated to improve outcome more than good BLS care does.
Question?
I just wanted to add to that. I hear all the time from EMT card holders. Sorry. From EMT card holders, especially EMT firefighters, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm just an ambulance driver. I'm so sick and tired of hearing I'm just an ambulance driver. You have an EMT card, you're a licensed medical professional, you can do more than just drive an ambulance. It helps out so much than, just like you said, having a chest pain call come out. You're 2 minutes from a hospital. Oh, I got a call for ALS, but ALS is 10 minutes down the road. Take them to the hospital if they're stable.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I've watched some of them drive. They don't do that well either.
I can't help that, but I'm just sick and tired of this whole I'm just an ambulance driver. And then me as a paramedic, when I expect an EMT firefighter to do something, they look at me like, oh my God, what do I do? Because no one enforces for them to do anything. They just let them drive the ambulance. And I feel like that's, stupid too, because they're not using the skill that they have. So that's what I just wanted to add to it.
Any other questions? I guess we got another question.
Hello again. Sorry. The biggest problem I have, I agree transporting BLS patients if ALS is far away. The biggest problem I have, again, is the hospital wait times. Multiple times. I'm an ALS provider. I'm not cleared in the county. And it's really frustrating for me to ride on a chest pains call or a septic patient, and they're unstable, but I'm 2 minutes away from a Towson hospital, and ALS is EMS 5 in one box. I'm not waiting for ALS, but then I get to the hospital, and I'm waiting an hour for my patient to get a blood pressure taken, not by my machine. So it's not definitive care. We're waiting an hour.
That's what you just described as an EMTALA violation. If you report that, if you write that down and send that to us, I can tell you that those are situations. I tell you situations before with the skilled nursing facilities where I can't get the Department of Health to respond. They'll respond the next day with a visit to the hospital for situations like that. So when you take an unstable patient into an emergency department and wait to be seen an hour, that's not acceptable in anybody's book. And we need to hear about that when that happens.
So now, do we consider chest pain for a BLS provider? Is chest pain unstable? Meaning, a BLS provider can't see if it's a STEMI or can't see what's causing the chest
Doesn't
pain.
matter. If you walk into an emergency department in a hospital with chest pain, you ought to expect to be seen right away.
Okay. Thank you.
That hospital has performance metrics around that chest pain. Yeah, I was just adding that hospital has performance metrics around the presentation of that chest pain. That patient has got to be processed. So yeah, if you guys are experiencing that, and we all experience it, just, you got to record it and let us know about that.
And in addition to that, one thing that we need to be doing and with our BLS providers, and the training is available, is BLS training for 12 leads. Because our goal that we're looking for in the fire department, and it's one of our metrics that we're looking at, is anybody over the age of 35 who's complaining of chest pain needs to have a 12 lead done. And that can be done by a BLS provider as well. And that does take that. We have had several cases where BLS people have taken people in, they've done the 12 lead, they've transmitted, and with no ALS intervention whatsoever, they've got in, they went right to the cath lab, and they've had successful outcomes. So the training is available. If anybody has any problems with that, get with me and we'll work on getting you scheduled up, because we would like to see everybody trained up in that.
Are we allowed to do that if we've been trained in it? Because last I was told
If you've had the training, yes. We want you to. Encourage it, highly encourage it.
All right, I'm gonna try to go, if that's all right with everybody. So I guess a good bit of you in here know who I am. My name is Paul Sullivan. I'm the fire chief of Middle River. I've been a paramedic 22 years in the county. I'm hearing all these echoes that are sentiments that have been echoed, and I share a lot of them, but equally there's many things we can do if we did some research. We talked about putting research positions in. Look at Houston. Houston has a priority dispatch where they have a physician sitting at dispatch who actually takes the calls and prioritizes calls on what unit should be dispatched. It actually works for them. So there's systems out there that we can start right at the dispatch center with how we put some of these units. It is unacceptable. I do work 2 volunteer stations in the county. I do work at that jurisdiction that Rob talked about that has a critical alert unit, and I think Rob misses Medic 15. But at the end of the day, it's unacceptable for me as an ALS provider to go from English Council all the way to 13 to do a refusal or to do a cardiac arrest when there's an ALS person on the engine. Absolutely, there's a BLS person on the engine. The BLS person can take care of that. They have the ability to handle the paperwork. Don't cancel the supervisor and keep me coming to do the paperwork for you. That burns me out. And that makes me not want to go to work, because I don't need to go to work there. I do it because I choose to and I enjoy it. But it's a burnout. Patient first, Kaiser. Maybe Baltimore County needs to take the charge as it relates to litigation or legislation, as it goes to Comar, to force these places to get units and keep units there. They have no problem charging for the services that they deliver until we come and transport the patient. So they collect their money, we do the work. All right, which will take me to another issue when it comes to funding. BLS and ALS, we dual dispatch stuff because there's a BLS unit closer than the ALS unit. Look, dispatch a unit. If you need another unit for that purpose, put a suppression piece on it. I mean, we just keep wearing EMS, and it's getting old. It's very old. Fortunately, I work 2 volunteer stations are right next to each other, a mile apart as the crow flies, and it used to be that I was the only ALS provider at both of them. So I was going to chase either one of them down depending on where I was working. One would go out ALS, or one would go out BLS, I'd chase it down ALS from the other station, and vice versa the next night. No sense, leave them in service. We're literally 30 seconds apart from each other. They don't even need to be there. So put 1 unit on the call, not 2. Why burn out 2 crews? We talk about EMEDs. Our EMED system and our CAD system in this county is horrible. It is horrible. I mean, there's no reason why I have to wait 15 minutes after I clear a call to be able to CAD and download information when I work in a jurisdiction where it's instantaneously real time. I push a button and it's real. The technology is there, but now I got to wait 15 minutes. In the process of waiting 15 minutes, you already put me on another run. So I haven't even got that run technically done as it relates to the information. GPS dispatching. Makes no sense to me why we're not dispatching GPS, why 1 unit is running. I run a busy medic unit in the city, and I see medic 13 or medic 4 all the time at the hospital, and nobody else is running calls but them. And as soon as they clear the call, they're running another call. But there's a unit closer to the 13's area than them coming from St. Agnes. But if you had GPS, they wouldn't be killed with 500 calls for the day. 325 could run that call. Medic 2 could run that call. But no, 13's clear, 13 gets it, so you burn out 13 all day because you don't dispatch off GPS. Rob talked about a critical alert unit. My jurisdiction runs 88% EMS calls. We do it with 36 units. 26 of those units are full-time, 10 of those units are part-time. And we get busy. We run 3 times more EMS calls than the county does. We put 4 critical alert units in, and God darn it, when they go in, we're happy. Because those 4 units, let me tell you what, it's only 4, but they help us out so tremendously like no tomorrow. And I don't know why you're not doing that in the county, because the people who ride them are those same suppression people who are providing EMS when you dispatch them as a first responder unit. So there's no reason why you don't have these units in service to help some of this taxing, because it's ridiculous for me as a volunteer at my house. We'll talk about the volunteer system. We're very depleted. We are depleted. My station is miserably failing. I will stand here and accept response. We are miserably failing when it comes to EMS. We're not the only ones. 5 minutes, the bell can go off for my medic unit 15 times, alerting my medic unit 15 times in 5 minutes for a call. It ain't got out on the first 14. It probably ain't getting out on the 15th. You can probably stop alerting it. Doc, I wholeheartedly agree with you. We were looking at the not medic case mentality, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I do not think we need to go there with saying something is not a medic case. We are all so burnt out that we will use poor decision making and poor judgment to classify something not a medic case because we don't feel like taking it to the hospital because we're tired. So I don't want to see anybody get set up for failure with that, but I did run a call the other day and the lady said, "Sir, I felt so bad for calling you. If I had $5 to take an Uber, I would have took the Uber. I didn't have it. I didn't have it." So we need to come up with some kind of alternative program, and I know some of this is geared to legislation, but I don't know why Baltimore County can't be at the forefront to try to get some of this going with MIMS and to see what we can do for Comar. It ain't an overnight fix, but it needs to come. Other jurisdictions are already doing this stuff in other parts of the country. Reroute policy. I don't understand, and maybe help me, I've been doing this for a long time here, but why I have to call EMS 2 or EMS 4 and tell them to come to the hospital so I can put a hospital on reroute. If there are 8 medic units there and there's nobody moving, there's no reason why we should not be able to communicate to our district officer to put that hospital on reroute. Does not mean they should not still get out of bed, come to the hospital and figure it out. But the longer you wait to put them on reroute means 2 more units just came and we're that much more backlogged. So as far as that goes, you're talking about going out of service for training. If you got to go out of service for training, go out of service for training. But at the same time, let the unit go out, but why don't you notify the volunteer station that area and give them a day's notice so they can try to put a crew together. So they can try to supplement and augment the system that you need to put out of service, because people do need to go out of service for training. And it's not fair to get there, get 2 seconds of the training, and then you lose it. Well, don't send me then. No, I don't need to go there. For what are you sending me for? So I'll go to my biggest problem here. Some time ago, there was a different leadership in place, Chief Rund, so I'm not going to throw the dart at you. And we've had this conversation offline. But at the end of the day, we signed agreements as volunteer stations for EMS billing. And we were sold a false bill of goods that was told we were going to reap some benefit from this EMS billing. And we all know money goes to the general fund. I got it. But at the end of the day, we were told that medic units would be supplied by the county to a certain dollar amount as a result of EMS billing funds that were generated. That would also free up suppression projects to be funded through 508 money. To date, that has not happened. To date, that has not happened. So that needs to be fixed. The volunteers transport a lot. The volunteers generate a lot of funding, and we should be able to have some medic units purchased off that money. Equally, I have a volunteer station I told you is failing in EMS, and I work for 2 volunteer stations, one who's sitting right here. And God bless them for putting a paid program in and recognizing the need for one, because they put one in, and when they put it in, they go in the hole to provide this county EMS. They go in the hole to provide the county EMS. I would love to put a paid program in at my station, which would help this county out significantly, but I cannot afford to go in the hole to provide EMS in the county. So we need to do something with the reimbursement money. $35 an hour doesn't cut it to put a paid program in and pay all the expenses that go with a paid program per hour for a volunteer unit to support a paid program, which the more volunteer units that are on the street with paid programs, look, I got it. If we can volunteer, Chestnut Ridge, you guys, I commend you to death. You do something great up there because it works for you guys. but it doesn't work for everybody else in the county. And we are a dying breed as volunteers, and I understand the station says volunteer, but if you don't get on board and start paying people to ride your unit, we've already found out it doesn't work. But I can't afford to pay people to ride my unit off $35 an hour, and I'm not in a well-connected, influential, financially impacted area that can give me a whole lot of money through donations. That doesn't work. So I have no money to supplement to pay Baltimore County to run an EMS program, because that's what I would have to do, go in the hole to provide EMS 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I can't afford to do that. So somewhere along the line, we need to visit that funding so we can try to help out, because the more volunteer units that are on the street, 17 hours a day, the better off the career folk are with less calls that they have to manage, which gives them a little break. I'm not saying, God forbid, we don't have to run calls, but it gives them a little break. Everybody's burnt. And it's sad as a volunteer and the chief officer of a firehouse, and I go to my volunteer station, I got volunteers sitting in the front. I don't ride the medic unit. I don't ride it. Should I ride it? Absolutely. I'm a volunteer. It's there. It's our service. But I'm burnt. I'm tired. I'm tired. So let us help you by helping us with some additional funding. Equally, I think we should be staffing our units 24 hours a day with some kind of funding to help us out to do that. Unfortunately, we don't have volunteers to ride an EMS unit. We got rid of one unit at Middle River, and many will tell you I'm ready to get rid of a second. Why have a service that I cannot deliver? And the only persons that it hurts is my community and this county. So I think I covered pretty much everything I had to say. Thank you for your time. It's a frustrating topic. I think everybody is frustrated equally, but everybody has good points, and I hope, Chief, you've heard us.
Thank you, Paul.
As the volunteer company that's going in the hole, on BLS, you pay us $25 an hour. It costs me a minimum of $33.50 an hour to put that unit on the street.
Can you say who you are, sir?
John Steckenberger, president of Lansdowne Volunteer Fire Department. Last year, we went in the hole $24,000 to provide EMS to this county for a variety of reasons. Everything from paying people when this other provider didn't come in because they took a call back as a career employee, which pays more, to them simply being late because they were held over. But yes, at cost us $33.50 an hour to put that unit on the street. And that's the bare minimum cost, actual wages, workman's comp, payroll fees, and taxes. It cost the county $87 an hour to put an ALS unit on the street for wages, benefits, and everything related to an employee. You're getting a hell of a deal, and it needs to go up a lot, because that doesn't even cover wear and tear on the unit, doesn't cover wear and tear on our building, it doesn't cover all the other expenses related to having someone in there. But I do want to say one good thing about this. Baltimore County responds to 160,000 calls a year. On the average call, we meet 3-4 people. Over a 2-year period, that's 1.2 million people we'll meet and greet the population of Baltimore County. In an election cycle, we'll statistically meet every resident twice. We are the face that the citizens of Baltimore County are going to see of their government. And if we don't take care of the people, it's not going to be a happy greeting all the time. And that's the face that they're going to remember when they go to vote. We've been doing this for over 100 years. We are the original social program. We respond to whatever their needs are. They don't call us for birthday parties. They call us when things are bad, and they expect us to fix them. We need to have healthy, happy, well taken care of providers to provide them with a happy experience so they come back and vote for the county executive every time. If he doesn't fund us well, he's not going to get a good response. Thank you.
How you doing, Chief?
I'm great, Stanley. How are you?
I'm good.
I don't need to ask you your name.
Anyway, for you all that don't know me, okay.
I don't know who doesn't
I'm
know
Stan
Stanley.
Bensley, representative, the retired representative for Local 1311. Along with that, spending 30 years on the street as an EMS provider. Thorne and Tommy Scheck's side. You got it. You got it. And a few other supervisors that had to manage me. All right. My question is, we got NIFRs, we got EMEDs, and we got CAD. And they were working on this 10 years ago. How can we merge them all into one? So we have one system to fill out. And why can't CAD be loaded as it happens as opposed to at the end of the ballgame? Culture of EMS. I understand you, Doc. Me and you've worked together a lot in my tenure. All right. And I'll say one thing with a case review. Once it gets to that level, it's very understanding. The issue is, from this level to that level, where I look at my EMS supervisors who are task saturated. You know, they want them to run calls. They want them to do a battalion chief or a captain's job as a lieutenant to take and do discipline. Plus, they want them to handle the hospitals and everything else. They're saturated. They're burnt. So, of course, that rolls down to the providers. And the same thing. They're burnt. Along with that, the negativism of, you better do it or I'm going to bang you. And that just happened the other day out of EMS 1 about infectious diseases. Where if you don't wear your mask, we're going to discipline you instead of educate you. As far as the upward mobility, 80% of the 80% of the captains are fire, 20% are EMS. How many calls are we running? My EMS ones, they're saturated. My lieutenants, they're saturated. And yet they go into that culture, that firehouse, and yes, there's a couple exceptions like Amron and where's my other buddy back there that's EMS? Landon. Okay? But there's a culture out there of we're suppression. We don't need to bother with you. And that needs to change. And also, the communications. There is not a center of communications as far as EMS. And I'll use example the other day when we were talking about the public health nurse. All right? Nobody in the union was aware of that. And that's that came up during our meeting. Okay? One thing I can say, the chief has been open-minded. Curtis, get up here and tell the good side. This is my little buddy.
Hi, I'm Little Stan. My name's Curtis Wiggins. I'm the Vice President, Local 1311. I wanted to come in behind Stan because I know how much of a bulldog he is. And Chief, I want to let you know that we really do appreciate the relationship we've had. When this meeting had opened up, you had made mention of the EMS reorganization, and we are getting ready to enter into contract negotiations. A lot of our members don't understand that the reorganization is not part of negotiations. But I come before you to bring the message that that is a very important piece to a lot of our members. That EMS reorganization committee was put together, and it was proposed to previous County Executive Don Moeller. Since that delivery of that proposal, there has been a tremendous amount of changes in county government, in the fire department, as well as in the union administration. Players have changed, faces have changed. What we would like to keep fresh is that, that notion of taking a look at our resources and possibly realigning to better serve everyone. I also want to thank Pikesville for welcoming us. This is great to see this group. Just to give you an idea, Chief, I know a lot of faces are new. Would the volunteers please raise their hands? Thank you. And would Local 1311 members please raise your hands? So, Chief, you have a department that's very well represented here, and please just the committee that put the reorganization together. I know it may have been handed to you as a packet. we're willing to work with you. We're willing to help. We're willing to brainstorm, and even little changes we can discuss. So I thank you, and thanks for welcoming us, Pikesville. Appreciate it.
Again, thank you all. And Chief, we're looking forward to your leadership and getting out of the management.
John, you want to tell them what you're doing?
Sure. I was just waiting for that opportunity. For those that may not that know me, I'm John McDowell, president of the BC VFA, also president of Arbutus, also past captain as well. First, I want to thank Paramedic Belcher for her opening statement. I think it was spot on. We are a combination department. A lot of times, sometimes we forget that, but a lot of the things that were brought up tonight affect both volunteers and career. Whether it's the paperwork or running the calls, the long waits at the hospital, those affect all of us. And the other thing I was surprised hasn't been brought up yet. It was hinted on, but it didn't go through, is the ALS clearance process in Baltimore County. It's a very complex. It seems to be different depending on who you talk to. We have a very robust relationship with UMBC, so we get a lot of EMS students that come through our program at Arbutus. And when they try and go through the ALS clearance process, it's broken. It's a very lengthy process. We get different answers. We don't know. They say, well, go talk to so-and-so, and then no, it's someone else you got to talk to. So we need to fix the clearance process for ALS providers. We have people that want to get cleared as ALS, but they give up because it's just too difficult, too long and drawn out. One of the things that I've taken some heat on the volunteer side, and I've stated this several times over the past few years, we are an EMS department that occasionally runs fires. So we need to shift that. We have that challenge within the volunteer system as well. You know, even within my own department, we mention that all the time. We struggle because the EMS lieutenants within our volunteer companies, they are looked upon as second-class citizens. So that's something we struggle and we need to address internally from a volunteer system. But I can't emphasize enough, we are EMS. That's what most of our business is. That's what brings in the money to the department and brings money into the county. The long waits at the hospital, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And that's something that from a volunteer perspective drives a lot of our volunteers away as well, because that long wait time when, they're stopping in, they'll run the calls, they like running the calls, but when they get stuck call after call after call, and then, they're running late to take their kids somewhere or do whatever, that's what hits on them, and they say, no, I'm not going to hang out for a couple hours because I know if a couple hours is going to turn into an 8-hour day. We know change is difficult. We've dealt with the same leadership for over 15 years, so we have to advance. Technology is something that Baltimore County, this fire department, is 10 years past the times. We have very little technology. A lot of that was pushed, through the volunteers jointly with the career, but we need to advance our technology. We've stood by on the wayside. I've sat in a lot of council meetings with the budget hearings over the years. The fire department was never mentioned. We stood by, let education go first. We understood that was important. The police. Now it's time for the fire department to step up and be in the front line to advance our system through technology. Why do we need to do, it was mentioned earlier, EMEDs and NIFRs? Why are we doing NIFRs for EMS calls? If you're putting them into EMEDs, it's technology, it's data. They can transfer that. We just need someone to say, let's do it. We've just ignored it. It's capable, we're capable of doing that. AVL, yes, that's something that's been around for years. Again, the fire department has not endorsed, the previous administration never endorsed that type of technology. So we need to take a big leap in addressing technology to help us do our job and be more efficient and effective. The EMS billing was mentioned. Yes, I was there and I testified to the county council, and so did a number of other members in this room testified to the county council, and we got that pushed through to help the fire service. But we got nothing out of it in the end from a funding return back to the fire service. It was, as it was mentioned, it was sold as, hey, that's going to cover your EMS expenses. It didn't, because, and I'm not going to get into the politics of what happened there, but it wasn't returned back to the fire department. This fire department's budget, in comparison, for those that may not know, we've got 29 volunteer companies in Baltimore County. We've got and 20-something career companies. a sister county that I know Chief Rund is very familiar with, in Howard County, has 12 or 13 companies, I forget now, between combination of volunteer and career. Their budget is the same budget as Baltimore County. Look at the size of those systems. Look at how aggressive Howard County is, the things that they put in place for health and safety, for aggressive technology, for replacement of apparatus, turnout gear.
So health and safety's here now.
Yes. Right. But we can't do it without money. For those, and I'm just to emphasize the point, they just upgraded or added to their fire tax in Howard County. They added their fire tax 6 cents. That translated to a $35 million increase in their fire department budget. It goes back to the fire department. This fire department has not asked for an increase for over 10 years. The philosophy was there were some slight increases due to salaries, but for the most part, the past administration did not want to ask for an extra nickel. They felt prouder turning back money at the end of the year rather than putting it back into our providers. As we mentioned early on, our people are our most important asset, but they're not treated like that. We're very encouraged by Chief Rund and her leadership that she's bringing to the county. We've had a lot of good discussions. I know she's had a lot of good discussions with the career representatives as well, so we're very optimistic at our future. I just passed on to her last night. We had a group that put together a proposal to address the EMS billing issue and how we can apply that to address our capital needs. We're working with the county government as well with the budget office. We have a meeting with them in the next 2 weeks to talk about how we put a bond bill in to address the capital needs, not just for the volunteers in our infrastructure, but also in the career companies. We know a lot of these career stations, they're falling down. They haven't had any significant improvements in years. So we are working, we're pushing that forward because we know that we can do that and have the ear of the county council and others, but we also want to bring the career in with that because we know together we can be a force to be reckoned with. And we have had those meetings with the county executive, and he's been very supportive, but we know that there's a process that we need to go through. So thanks to Pikesville for hosting this tonight, and thanks to Chief Rund for all her support, and we'll continue to work together.
Hi, I'm Rick Udell, member of Pikesville Volunteers, but I'm also EMS Chair for Baltimore County for many years, and the State EMS Chair. I heard mentioned just a little bit earlier by a young gentleman over here about accountability of the volunteer service. I know when a volunteer unit doesn't get out, it's a strain on the system. However, I need to know, the association needs to know, if there is a problem with a volunteer unit not getting on the road. There's things that I can do. I do meet with their chief, their captains, to find out what the problem is, daytime, or is it nighttime, or manning problem. I do go back to my association and report it, and we will take steps to try to correct it. But whether you're out of another volunteer unit or career unit, we need to know. Because just saying, well, there has to be accountability, and that's where the ball drops, the problem's not going to be solved. So I'm just passing that word on, that that's an important thing. The other thing is that I know the problem is with the overcrowding in the hospitals. I think the DOs and shift commanders do one hell of a good job. No questions asked. And they're not going to be able to be or get to that facility. Come to the volunteer system. We have some people that can do that job also. By going into that facility and diplomatically have the experience to go ahead and try to push it along. All you do is got to get a hold of me. Rich knows how to get to me. And some of the DOs, Mike Fold knows how to get me. Been with Mike Fold a lot of years. Kim does. And get a hold of me. And we will get a reputable volunteer to go over to a medical hospital and try to help to push the system along. And they can do it. I thank you. Chief, and I thank you. Doing one heck of a good job.
I got your back.
I appreciate that. Evening, everyone. Evening, Chief. Glenn Harris, EMS AP. I'll be brief. and I'll be blunt also. But we've all talked about the different problems that we've seen, we've heard, we've experienced. I just want to talk a little bit because I'm one of the newer district officers around here, so I just want to talk a little bit about what I've learned, and it maybe will help you, because you talked about getting around to the hospitals and meeting people. And one of the first things I learned was communication. I'm talking to my providers on a daily basis. Group me, text messages, face-to-face. I don't have Facebook, I'm in your face. And that's one of the things that I learned, that you gotta be successful. You gotta communicate. My phone's blowing up right now, people going, ask this, ask that, say this. It just happens. So I think communication is one of the things that we need to work on, definitely. The second thing is, trust your people. There's a lot of experience in this room, a lot of knowledge, a lot of good ideas, sometimes some bad ideas. But at the same time, you got to learn to trust your people, because with the communication and with the trust, we move forward. The third thing that I learned, attitude reflects leadership. And that's a big important step, because there's 28 different district officers, hoodles of paramedics, a lot of EMTs, and a lot of fire captains. If you don't have the right attitude, you're never going to have the right leadership. So that's one of the reasons why I know I promoted, and I know Amanda promoted, and I know everyone else promoted. So I just wanted to mention that. So if you want to know what's going on in the field, communicate. Trust me. I'm going to tell you the truth. You don't have to come and send me an email. Come right down here. We'll talk. Thank you.
Good evening, Chief. TJ Gagliano, paramedic firefighter, Station 6 on B shift. Thank you for your time tonight. Some things that haven't been touched on is, speaking for the 40 or so paramedic firefighters in the county, I would hope there's a plan to utilize us more on the suppression pieces, not necessarily downgrading units, but in my opinion, from a suppression aspect, I enjoy both, and I'm sure some suppression captains here will agree, it's a danger to have us on a unit once or twice a year. That's a danger. We don't get the training, we don't get the experience as much as the other people do. Now, I do enjoy being a paramedic, and speaking for the 100 or so paramedics in the department, as Lieutenant Harris said, you can't run a department off of emails. We have SOPs, we have Maryland medical protocols. Us as the paramedic providers in the field shouldn't have to worry about personal manifestos sent out via email of how they expect people to practice as EMS clinicians. I feel a lot of your paramedics practice with some fear that they're going to get disciplined or questioned if they handle a call a certain way. That's not how it should be at all. Lieutenants like Glenn Harris, Lieutenant Fruand over here, and others that I've worked for are very supportive of their providers and don't allow that to happen. So we don't like to see that coming from the command staff at headquarters. That's all I had.
Let me just respond to the the fear of practicing and being disciplined. This is something that I've been around for the entire time I've been in EMS, and that goes back to probably about 1981. That there's always a fear that we're going to get disciplined for what we're doing. We haven't done that for 20 years. We really haven't. But there's still that fear out there that we're having trouble getting past. Now, if there's tone in some of the email communications from headquarters, let us know. Sometimes we write things, or sometimes things come out that don't get interpreted the way they were intended. But there's nothing. We don't. The goal is not to threaten people, and the goal is not to discipline people for doing their jobs. The goal is to educate. So I get it. I think there's variability in the way that people communicate that, and there's variability in the way that it gets across. But that's not what we do. That discipline hasn't been there for people doing their job. It's education.
The threat's been there.
And you might not see it, but it's most certainly there.
Yeah.
You might be talking to someone else who's kind of preventing you from seeing it, because it stops there. And your communication to other people in our administration does not get down to us. And it's very one-sided, and I feel like you might not get the whole picture, and I feel like you guys are getting the whole picture right now. There's a lot of people holding back because certain people are in this room. And
But Stan's not listening, so you can go
Say
ahead.
something, all right? From the fact of 1311 and me and the chief, and I'm retired, and I'm an EMS guy, all right? If you got something you want to pump to the chief, feel free to come to me, because none of them can do anything to me because I'm retired. All right? All right? And I will send it straight to her, and I know how she is. It's between you and her. If you want to educate her, and you're afraid to say something here because of some yahoos that are here, all right? Send it to me, okay? Along with that, Doc, right? Yes, there are situations, there are things, and me and Curtis and John and the other union people get the phone calls. Feel free to call us as far as if there's an issue as far as that's concerned. We can sit and talk about it. We can do whatever, and then it's your option to do something. But yes, we're here for you. Along with that, we're here to help the system. And we're here to change the culture. Thank you.
So let me add to that. Every station meeting that I have gone to, I have emphasized, if you do not feel comfortable speaking in a room, you have an avenue to communicate with me. Please do so. I can't do any more than that. If you don't talk to me, I don't know. And I communicate fairly well, I think. Matter of fact, sometimes too well. But anyway, please communicate with me. I won't know any other way. I cannot read minds. I just can't. And there better not be any harassment, intimidation, or bullying going on. I know there's like over 400 people still watching. It's a very clear message. Very clear.
All right, good evening, Chief. My name is Travis Over. I'm a paramedic at 1C. I probably came here tonight with a whole bulleted list from like a Google document of things that everybody could address. You know, we can get more units. We can discuss.
Do you have it printed?
I do. I think it actually may have made its way.
Do
out.
I have it?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we go on and on about more units and things like that. But I think the one thing I see tonight, and I'll try to say this with the most respect to the other people, like everybody in the room, I see a lot of these messages of, you know, this is not happening. This is not that, you know, yeah, it's great to say that, you know, we're not being forced to do things that we shouldn't be doing. But that's not really how it is. That's not how it is in the field. You know, you can, Director Shenning, again, with, you know, all due respect, you know, we talked about bringing up research groups, and you tell me about a group that's at the state. You know, I mean, I have family members that have gym memberships. Doesn't mean the fire department gives me a good physical fitness program. You know, I mean, like, I think that it's a low-cost change that allows people to feel involved. And obviously, everybody can't have a hand in everything, but we start discussing a lot of these things can be addressed. That, you know, let's interact with the hospitals more. Let's talk to their staff. What do they like that we're doing? What do they want us to do better? Bring those ideas to you guys. It doesn't even have to be on duty. You know what I mean? I'm sure some of these people would come in, put in some extra time on the side to work on that. But I think there's this it's really easy to sit in the front of the room, and you can tell me there's not a lot we can do about it. Your office is 2 miles from my station, and you get an hour lunch break that I don't get. I'm sure you could come down, and I'm sure you could talk to me, and I'm sure you could talk to my peers for 20 minutes. I'm sure you could check in at the hospital and see how long I've waited. I've got a list. We've waited at the hospital for over an hour on average at like St. Joe's, GBMC, all these hospitals for every single day. So to tell me that care is not delayed on these priority patients, that may be the ideal situation. There may be ways that it can be reported, but I don't think that that's really what's happening. You know what I mean? It's like, it's nice to sugarcoat it that way. But I think what we do in the field is, you know, and I bit my tongue on a lot of stuff, and I'm very ADD, so I'll go all over the place. But I think the concern is that, like, it's not that hard to come down and talk to us. It doesn't take an hour. You have time to do that, and I know you have a lot going on up there. But the chief has come down in the evening. She's at the very top of the department and has probably the most individual responsibility of anybody here. And I think probably 80% of us have met her face to face, feel comfortable talking to her. And I can't say that about the rest of the administration. And that's not me being mean. That's not me calling anybody out. But that's how it is. You know, I have chiefs that I like. There's people that are great. But the bottom line is there's some that talk to their people. There's some that don't. And if you want to hear about that, put on some plain clothes, dress as somebody who's like, you know, somebody who's a part of the public, and sit and listen for a couple minutes. I mean, the chat morale sucks. And it's all for simple things. You know, I listened for the last couple of weeks to talk to the hospital. Nobody said like, I need a $30,000 a year raise. I need 400 more units. I want lunch. I want to be able to go to the bathroom without somebody dragging me off the toilet. You know, 15 minutes. But it's simple things like that could cost you 30 cents to do, and I guarantee you see an 80% return on it. And I don't think that's something you're blind to, and I think that's like what's come up a lot. But I think accountability is huge. Accountability to the hospitals for holding us for so long. Accountability for us to do things a little bit more efficiently. Accountability to you guys to kind of actually be a little bit more involved in our system and let us be more involved in return. I think we lack a lot of communication and a lot of accountability, and it's been going on for a really long time. And that's why you guys are maybe, you know, so oblivious to some of the things that are really happening. I think it's two-sided. I think we have a lot of responsibility for that too.
So, and I appreciate that. And I'm here listening to all this too. I mean, I very well could have chose not to come tonight. You know, so I want to hear this. And, you know, I am at the top of EMS. I do have other ancillary responsibilities, and it is very tough to get out. I have said for years, I wish I could get out in the field more. It's something I would absolutely welcome and enjoy. I tend to try to meet people where we train, people who come in here. This is a huge turnout tonight. Dr. Baron-Holtz, Dr. Sago will tell you, you'll find me here most of these Thursday nights because I like to go where people are training at, and I think that's important. So I do listen. It may not be individually into each one of those stations, and it's something that we can all get better at, and I wish we had more staff. And I wasn't saying that trying to blow your thing off with the research group saying that it was at MIMS. I'm just saying we don't have that department here in the county, and I appreciate you thinking I have a lot of power, but I can't create a position in Baltimore County Fire Department. I just can't.
I'm not trying to hold you specifically accountable for that type of position. I'm saying with her to hear.
But again, and you know, and we talk about stuff, and this year, especially with the change of administration, this is probably the biggest budget that I've submitted, you know, for approval to the fire chief. But that's where my job stops. I submit a very big. And I don't think it's a very good sign of leadership if I don't get something that I want to come and blame the chief. Well, I submitted it and she said no. So I think that arguably I wish I could get out more. And absolutely, that's a point well taken. And I will, when we walk out here today, I'll try to act on that and try to get out. I think, huh? So I got it. It just can't be tomorrow.
Can you, please? And that's not just for us, that's for people that are watching.
No problem. My name's Casey O'Brien. I'm a paramedic at Station 7. I feel like there's 1 week out of the year that people care about EMS, and that's EMS week. We'll see everybody coming out. Administration actually comes out. They want to give us lunch. They want to ride with us. They want to see what's happening. And then we suggest ideas. We give things. And then you never hear anything else. You go 51 more weeks out of the year that nobody cares about the medic crews that are out there in our perception because it's over and done with. When it comes to the medical directors, I know medical directors are out on the west side in the Central Battalion running calls. I haven't seen one on the east side in the last 6 years. They do a great job of running calls in the areas that they live, and it's fantastic for the crews that are there. I don't know them because they don't come over and ride where we ride. I mean, I think we go on and on and on about the reorg and everything else, but it's just the way that people don't care from the top is what the perception is in the field. And we never feel like they have our back. And it's dangled over your head that you'll be in trouble. QA's looked at as a negative thing. We can sit here and say just culture, it's a positive thing, it's a learning experience, but it doesn't come that way. You have a medic unit that runs however many hundreds of calls. It's 200 plus hours over PM, and you get 20 some people that get NOIs because the brake pads are gone. What does that do to the morale of the people that are riding those units? They're coming in and just running and running and running and running. And now you have to worry about Well, I didn't hear the little beep when you turned left and the fluid in the brake chamber moved over, so now we're all getting NOIs. It's a constant culture of, I don't say it's just culture because we don't have the ability to have this open communication very often. And we don't see the people who are out there. Dr. Pollack, I've been a paramedic in Baltimore County for almost 8 years. The first time I ever met you and the only time I ever met you before tonight was at the preceptor class when I became a preceptor. And I know you're busy. I know there's things to do. But having that personal relationship with our medical directors and with the administration of EMS is what's going to make us successful.
Yeah, we've neglected the east side we've neglected the east side from a medical direction standpoint, not from a medical direction, but from the standpoint of that FaceTime with you in the field. I used to be able to do that, and I can't anymore. It's just, I mean, not that I don't want to, it's just that the county's big. We have 8 medical directors, and our diversity of representation to the east side is 0. So I've got a plan for that, but you're right. You got it. I haven't been to Dundalk in a long time.
So, my name is Thomas Cook, or TJ. I'm a paramedic firefighter at 6 on D shift, as well as a volunteer at Chestnut Ridge. One, I think this is really awesome that we're actually finally coming together for one meeting in one place with the volunteer system, as well as the career, to actually feel like one department and not 2 separate, completely different entities. Aside from that, going on with BLS providers, as they always say, and any paramedic instructor will tell you, your EMTs save paramedics, right? So we have so little training for BLS providers. I can go around and almost every BLS provider that I've ever worked with, there are some very good ones, but the majority don't know a LAM score, don't know how to do or they know a Cincinnati, but don't know the LAMs, don't know their trauma categories. There's very little training from the academy that is totally geared toward BLS providers to be competent BLS providers to make those decisions, when to transport versus wait for ALS, what calls are more critical than others, and when they need to make that game day decision of, I need to treat them right now with what I have or go to the hospital. And like I said, most things were already covered in what I wanted to talk about. But the biggest thing, I feel like there's also a misconception that paramedics are complaining all the time because they don't want to run calls. Not one person here so far has complained about the call volume. Not a single person. And that's just a perception from our end. We just wanted a second to sit and eat and, like I said, use the bathroom. In addition to that, most people here are super passionate, not just about EMS, but I know at least TJ Gagliano and I, we're pretty much in the same boat. We both are paramedic firefighters, are cleared as backup drivers. I know, at least personally for me, I've been on the engine 4 times this year. That's it. Or on a suppression piece at all, for that matter. In order for me to get training on the truck, I had to wait for the paramedic at 15 to go down to the academy so I could ask to be temporarily assigned to 15 in order to get that training done. It's almost impossible to go out of service for any sort of training, and like everyone has said, anytime we try to go somewhere, we'll be there in service. 5 minutes later, we're gone. Also, I'm sure you come from a jurisdiction that has paramedic engines, and just to reiterate the importance of that, not just for an upgrading standpoint, but to act as that second set of ALS hands when there isn't a district officer available. I know there's been plenty of times, not this year obviously because I've only been on 4 times, but in previous years where I actually got more engine time, where the paramedic would specifically call for the engine because they knew there was another ALS provider on the engine, then not have to wait for EMS 4 coming to Dundalk. The other thing that I really wanted to talk about, and it has affected me personally recently, is the disciplinary process for providers in general, whether they're not getting along with other coworkers or whatever the reason may be. There seems to be this kick the can down the road approach where we don't deal with the problem at hand. We simply have this, like, almost the best analogy I can find is the toddler that doesn't want to eat his dinner and spreads it around on the plate to make it look like something happened, but it's still there in front of you. And that's literally the best analogy that I can come up with for it. I know that there's been people that are transferred, and then it completely ruins your morale on your shift. I know personally for me, I love working in Dundalk. I absolutely love coming to work every single day. But recently it's been a strain because of just the dynamic that has changed, where we do have some people that have been transferred and moved, and now it makes my morale, makes me not want to come to work anymore. Or not anymore, but it makes me almost hesitant to come to work. Which is another reason of being moved to a different station temporarily. And I feel like the fire side has this idea of crew integrity and how important it is to be working with the same individuals on a day-to-day basis, where that does not transition to the medic crews whatsoever. We're constantly bounced around back and forth. And I understand we have to, from an ALS perspective, we have to move to where we're needed. I understand that. But when it comes to being in the same house, there's no reason we should have to constantly switch crews every trick because another crew that we weren't even involved with doesn't get along. And I'm not the only person this has happened to. The same station on a different shift, this has also been the same thing has happened. Where my partner and I got split up because someone else can't play nice with each other. Aside from that, I think everything else on my list was covered. Let me double check. But like I said, I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, 99% of our providers are super passionate about what we do and super passionate about wanting to better themselves in the department, not necessarily just for promotional opportunities, but just to be well-rounded in everything we do. So I'm not asking to be put on the engine more often to get off the medic unit and stop running calls. I just want to be able to be good at both of my titles, paramedic, firefighter. I should be able to be proficient in both sets of skills. Other than that, thank you very much.
Chief Rund, my name is Nadav Korman. I'm a volunteer here. I'm a first-year paramedic student. I'm through CCB.
Can you speak a little louder? I couldn't hear your name.
Sorry, my name's Nadav Korman. I'm a volunteer here at Pikesville. I'm a first-year paramedic student through Baltimore County at CCBC. I'm working towards my EHS undergrad at UMBC as well as my grad in EHS disaster management. And first of all, I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity in general. I have not been part of EMS for decades and decades. I'm relatively new. It's been, I think, like a little over 3 years. But one of the things that I like about this opportunity is that I think everybody here is very stressed and very, as people have said, burned out. And I think that having this opportunity more than just this time, having it, whether it's twice a year, for people to hear that all the thoughts in their head are not just in their heads, it's in everybody's head, and that it's going directly to you and the administration in general, I think would be extremely beneficial for everybody involved. The second thing is one of the first things that kind of like took me back about EMS in general was the first time on the screen the word non-emergency call. So non-emergency sick subject came out. I'm not going to go into, oh, well, we shouldn't go, oh, this, that, whatever. But when something like that occurs, if a protocol or something could be developed, if better relationships with the private ambulance services, wow, that was hard, with the private ambulance service, so that these non-emergency calls could potentially go towards them. Because just like all of the EMTs and paramedics and everything in the fire department, it's not for everybody to work at private ambo. I tried it and it was definitely not for me. But they're all given the same training. Might be a little bit more cynical, but everybody has the same training. So that would potentially ease up some of the workload. The next thing is that part of my grad school and everything like that is I have to do research on one of many wide variety of topics. And doing research in the past as part of school papers and so on and so forth was, for example, I had to do a whole research thing on Boston EMS. And the difference between all the different services and Baltimore counties is that all of their call data, I'm not saying addresses, nothing like that, but all of their data is very easily and readily available. I did not have to call almost anybody to find out the information that I needed. And coming up now, doing a project right now, and trying to find run data, and thank you to Captain Willits for being very, very helpful with all of this. It took a long time just to find how many calls of a certain call type we went on in a given year. And I think that especially with this new upcoming mentality of, let's not be a reactive service, let's be a proactive service, and people in school trying to do research, trying to come to you with different solutions. Knowing this information instead of saying, oh, I have all these ideas, and say, oh, well, come develop something. Well, having that information readily available would be of great use from a student and upcoming perspective. The next thing is that very quickly it became apparent that there is very little trust between hospitals and EMS. The amount of times that I know I would walk into a hospital and try to give a report, and it'd be very, very apparent that the charge nurse or whomever is taking the report does not give a damn about what I'm saying and is completely ignoring everything. And I'm like, I think what I'm saying is important. Maybe I'm not a nurse. I don't know. But completely, it seems as if like whatever I'm saying, oh, well, it might not be exactly like that. Let me go redo it. But there's a difference between asking similar questions and completely ignoring and knowing that the short form that I barely managed to finish filling out in the medic unit is not going to get looked at another time after I just read it in the medic unit. It'll go to the charge nurse. They're going to be like, okay, allergies, nope. Oh, well, maybe they'll do that if they don't ask. So just having a little bit more trust between, the pre-hospital and the hospital setting in areas like that. And then we are all talking about, how can you find out about, things that are happening in hospitals, in the field, things like that we think are not right. Whether people were happy or not happy about it, we transferred over to EMS Elite. And one of the reasons, if I'm not mistaken, was because of the qualities that research and data could be collected from EMS Elite a lot easier, or it was more integrated in a general sense. And I see that with the new stroke protocol, there is a button that magically appeared when the protocol went into effect that you could, click, okay, here's, you had to transfer the patient for this, that, whatever reason. If something on EMEDS could be added, that if you had an issue at the hospital, if you had an issue at a facility, and writing what is going on, and that way you can say, okay, well, this facility specifically is having X amount of issues, and here are the written documented cases of all these issues, things like that. And then my final point, which I'll keep brief. One of the first things that people would ask me when I joined the fire department is, what is the most difficult call that you've gone on? What's been the hardest part? And most people have been asked this question more than a handful of times. And a lot of people are expecting, you know, oh, there was this mass casualty in the middle of nowhere and this and that happened. And for me personally, it's, and especially at Pikesville with the multitude of nursing homes in our first due, is the nursing home calls. And the reason being is because the amount of elder abuse and neglect is so absurd and is ridiculous. I have reported it to the hospital. I've sent in whatever needs to be sent in, and it doesn't feel like anything whatsoever is being done about it. When you walk into a facility and it smells like a UTI, there's typically a problem. I'm pretty sure most places still smell like a UTI, or name many other delightful things. But it's really, really hard when obviously they're calling us because we're like their last resort a lot of times, and they're in a facility where they have to give up all of their money, basically, except for a very small portion, to be taken care of by the people that are at that facility. And for lack of a better term, they really don't give a damn most of the time. I mean, basic example, I walked into a place and I made sure to fully report this. This guy that, you know, walking around like normal, 96, looked real good, was picking at something on his head, whatever, so they called us for a head bleed, and there were bugs, maggots crawling around in a wound in his head. And the staff swore that they cleaned it every single day. And I'll leave the rest of the conversation to what was on the EMS report that was documented verbatim. So,
Where did you report it?
Where did you report that? What?
You said you reported that. Where did you report it?
I wrote it verbatim on the EMS report, and
Right.
from what, at that point in time, from what I knew, I was told to tell the hospital, and they would contact their respective facilities. I spoke to the EMS officer at the time, and that's all I got. So maybe in addition to something on EMED saying, hey, suspected this, what happened?
I was just going to say, everyone in this room is a mandated reporter, and if you see things like that, that's an automatic call to the Department of Social Services, minus any other healthcare provider. That's automatic call, whether it's elder abuse, children, you're a mandated reporter.
And that reporting can go through your district officers directly to them. And it'll come to me and it'll go to DHMH directly, to the Office of Healthcare Quality, who has the investigative authority there.
In respect of everyone's time here, we're 35 minutes past the time that we said we would hold this, so I'm going to let John be the last person that speaks out of respect for the docs, and I'll say something after John's done.
I'll be very brief, and I appreciate, thank you, Dr. Pollack, Chief Rund, Director Shenning, Dr. Bernius, and Slinky. Sorry. We do go back a long way. Some real brief, myself, President of 1311, John Sabiga. I received and joined the fire service in 1978 and got my first EMT card in 1982. So I am not a spring chicken, so I have been around. It was a long time ago, and I was a volunteer at Liberty Road way back when. Chief, that's correct. The horses do need to be fed. You received a tremendous amount of advice tonight. Some of it really, really good. I think EMS Lieutenant Harris brought a lot of good points forward to you. Trust your providers. Trust your providers. Communicate. You have some outstanding providers in this room tonight. I wish I got this many providers and a lot of attendance at my union meetings. Our union meeting was tonight. We live streamed this at our union meeting tonight because that's how important this subject is to my membership and our membership. The disciplinary issues are very real on this side of the aisle. They really, really are. Our members feel threatened at times, that if they don't do certain things, they're scared to make decisions for fear of retribution. They are very real out there. I've represented many members due to some of those very issues. They're scared sometimes to make these decisions. I would just ask that you take a fresh look. I'm very excited with this county executive. Yes, during EMS week, we see a lot of different faces out there. This county executive took the time to ride during EMS week. Not only that, he had many of his staff out there. Casey O'Brien, I believe, was a recipient of the Deputy Administrative Officer that rode and was very impressed, even with Casey. Sorry, Casey. I gotta say that I'm really, really impressed with this county executive. He seems engaged, he seems willing to work with us, and I gotta tell you that for the first time, I believe this local and this Volunteer Firemen's Association is working together to move forward for the betterment of Baltimore County Career and Volunteer Fire Department from our side and from their side. A lot of members in this department I have seen and known for 30 plus years. Been a member of this career department for 31 plus years. I'm not going anywhere. We need to work together to be successful. Together we will conquer, divided we will fail. That's the message that I bring to the fire chief. I know the chief has been up for a long period of time. Her and I had a conversation at 7 o'clock this morning. So I know where she is coming from. And like I said, I left the union meeting, live streamed it coming here, because that's how important I feel that this meeting is. And I hope we do this maybe quarterly or semi-annually, because this is an important forum for all of us here. Thank you, Chief, and I appreciate everything. God bless. Safe travels to everybody. Thank you.
I appreciate everybody's candor. I appreciate the comments, and let's move forward.
Yeah, I'm super appreciative for the honesty and for the authentic sharing of the concerns. Exceedingly optimistic about pathway moving forward. If you want CEU credits for this attendance, please feel free to sign the sign-in sheet if you need MIM CEUs. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. This was extremely important to me, like I said, when I met out there at the stations, going for the different meetings. I felt like EMS was kind of being quieted down, didn't really have an opportunity for a voice. I think that it's important that we continue to talk through, and in addition to that, that it's important that I continue to communicate to let you know where we are with these issues and these challenges in moving forward. Anyone who has heard my spiel, ultimately we're going to be having groups put together to work on the challenges as we move forward, and those groups will be communicating to you along with me as to the progress that they are making on those efforts from A to Z. You're not just going to put committees together to talk about things and then not see any results from it. Ultimately, if the committee gets together and they decide this is not going to work, we're going to have to go in a different direction, well, they're going to communicate that to you, and we're going to do that on a regular basis. You saw Kathy around here taking pictures, and she's doing videos. I'll be working with the PIO office to create videos to keep you updated on a monthly basis when we start moving on these things. I didn't come here because I had to. I came here because I wanted to. And I'll continue to send that message. I'm here because I want to be here. Because this is a great department. And all of you know that. We just have to feel it. Okay? So thank you all for your time. I appreciate every last word that you've provided. Please do not be afraid to speak up. I need your voices. I need to hear. We need to hear what you have to say. If we don't know what we have to fix. Okay? Thank you for your time. Everybody, please have a safe ride home, stay safe, and thank you for what you do.